Sports Talk coming to you on a Victory Monday. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. When you can take advantage of everybody losing and you don't play a game, there is no more bigger Victory Monday than that if you are the Kansas City Chiefs. We will get into plenty today. The Cats take care of business against the Bears. Boy, Dave or Andy, you might be worried. We will also get to what happened in Lawrence. Jason Bean, please be okay. Jason Bean, take, I don't know if you want my brain, probably not great, but it's healthy. Please, Jason Bean. We'll get to all of that today here on 580 Sports Talk. See, this is the karma gods. This is the football gods saying, Oh, this is what you want? You wanted something like this for how many years? 35 years? No. All I want for Christmas is a KU and K-State game to be just fantastic. And you got to go all the way back to like 95. That's the last time KU and K-State have been actually good when they faced each other the last time. And it won't be if Jason Bean is not healthy. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Brendan, hey, I've never wanted someone to be healthier in my entire life than Jason Bean to be healthy for this game on Saturday.
Do you know how many one-score games KU and K-State have played since KU's last win?
One.
Yeah, I'm one, maybe two.
Two. The year after, so 2009, the first year of this current streak for K-State.
And that was when like Grant Gregory was that quarterback, I think, for K-State.
K-State won 17-10.
Yeah.
And then there was the really gross one, 2019, Snyder's last year, was it?
2018. So yes, it was Snyder's last year. Also the last year of David Beatty in Manhattan when the game ended with Peyton Bender dropping the ball.
Yeah. Jason Bean, please be healthy. For real. I'm not joking. Like, we got to get him healthy. Find a way to get him healthy.
Major disrespect here to old Cole Ballard.
Yes, we'll get to that coming up here in just a little bit. We're going to talk Chiefs. We're going to talk KU, K-State, Big 12, little football in general. We'll get to just that absolute ridiculousness that went on and still going on in the Big 10. We'll hear from Andy Reid. Lots to get to on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Let us know your thoughts on this Monday. Hit us up on our text line. Easy to get a hold of us. All you have to do, shoot a text to 785-272-9429. Put it in your phone book. It's real easy. Shoot us a text. Let us know your thoughts. And also check us out on our YouTube stream. You go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, and say hello to Dan, Brendan, myself. Love to interact with you on this Monday. So lots to discuss. We'll be talking plenty of K-State. Oh, you better believe we're going to be using Charlie Weiss today. It is K-State. I am excited for the Sunflower Showdown. 6 o'clock kickoff. Perfect. Love that time. I do. I know Brendan doesn't, but I'd rather it be 6 o'clock than 11 o'clock, to be honest with you. Get people all fired up.
I'll take 6 o'clock over 2:30.
Well, yeah, 2:30 is in the middle of the day, and you can't do a whole lot. You either got to be early in the morning or late at night. But I like it 6 o'clock. We'll have the K-State Radio Network coming up at 4 o'clock on Saturday with the 6 o'clock kickoff from the booth. I'm excited for that. Really, really am.
I was going to play the Charlie Weiss clip here.
We are talking about K-State.
Yes. We don't have
Good to see him so little energy. That was nice.
We also could probably pull Les Miles. Who is K-State? We could probably get that. No one from K-State has done any of that recently. I mean, I need.
Well, they win every year.
Yeah, what bulletin board material do you really need if you win 14 in a row?
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Kleiman doesn't record himself saying you're from Eudora and they didn't recruit you. That's not recorded.
Let's get into all of that. But first, could you have a better week than the Kansas City Chiefs did without playing? Here is what occurred this weekend, okay? And these are all positives for the Kansas City Chiefs. All right. The Cincinnati Bengals lose. That always makes Chiefs fans happy. The Jacksonville Jaguars lose.
No. They did not lose.
They didn't? Did they? They came back and won?
They got blasted back to Pee Wee football in that game.
They lost. You're just talking about
I'm talking about the severity of the loss.
I'm going with Bill Parcells and just the loss, which made the Chiefs happy. The Ravens lost. That makes Chiefs fans real happy.
They did Raven stuff just when we thought, hey, maybe they're not the Ravens anymore. No, here they are to remind you that the John Harbaugh Ravens are still very much the John Harbaugh Ravens, capable of taking any size lead and turning it into a defeat.
The Chargers lose. That always makes Chiefs fans happy because the Chargers think that they're on the Chiefs level. It's not, but they lost. So that's always a positive.
Quintessential Justin Herbert era Chargers game.
Right?
Herbert was unbelievable, and it didn't even matter.
Didn't even matter. Travis Kelce got to watch his girl perform, and boy, she was so happy afterwards. Ran up, gave him a big old bear. Even the lyrics, she's changing lyrics of the songs, folks.
She ran up, and there are like different angles of the post-show video, like they got all 22 coaches film of this. Taylor Swift runs up to Travis Kelce like he just came back from war.
Yeah. Well, she probably hadn't seen him in a while because, she's traveling down there. He wasn't there the day before. He just, there was that day, and she wanted to see her man. She was excited, So
the funniest part of all the videos that came out from that show in, was it Brazil?
No,
Argentina. Yeah, that's right. Buenos Aires. He's hanging out with her dad.
Yeah.
Just like chilling in the VIP over there.
Yeah, not just VIP, like they're chilling in like on the stage, exit stage right.
So when she says the line about the guy on the Chiefs, her dad is the one who freaked out the most. He was like, that's you.
Was it Karma is not my
Karma
boyfriend?
Is the guy on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Coming straight home to me. I have to admit, I did not know what Taylor Swift's father looks like. So I saw the thumbnail of that video before I watched the video, and I said, okay, I'm sure I know where Travis Kelce is. Why is Pete Carroll standing there with him? What is Pete Carroll doing down there? You have a big game this weekend, Pete. You need to get back to the Pacific Northwest.
So you got the Bengals losing, the Jags losing, the Jags getting sent back to,
the Shadow Realm.
Yeah. The Ravens losing, the Chargers lose. Travis Kelce got to see his girl perform, and she was excited about that. That's a big win. Mahomes, albeit to the unhappiness of some KU fans who were not thrilled that Mahomes was there, but Mahomes got to see his beloved Texas Tech Red Raiders win in person. He probably wasn't expecting that. And I'm going to go ahead and say that Andy Reid ate a really good cheeseburger. So, I mean, did anything bad happen for the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend?
As far as their hopes and desires to be the number one overall seed in the AFC, playoff wise, it could not have unfolded any better. And
I mean, it's perfect, right? It almost makes me go, if the Chiefs would have beat the Broncos, hell, the 1 seed might already be locked up at this point in time. Like, and the reason why I think the 1 seed is a huge deal for the Chiefs, for their schedule breaks out very well. They played 9 games. They're going to get a bye. You take care of business, you play 8 games, then you get a bye. Then you play 2 games. Say it with me now.
And then you get a bye.
And then you play the last game of the year. Could you put it together any better? 9 games bye, 8 games bye. That's a pretty good situation if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this is unfolding very, very well for a Chief team that is not operating with, all engines going right now, leading into the second half of the season. This is a great weekend if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. And even those who are upset that Travis Kelce, flew 18 hours down to watch someone sing at a concert. I still want to know, did she perform better because he was there, much like he performs better when she is there.
I don't know. I don't have
those are some lucky fans down there in Argentina.
I don't have the AWS data metrics for Taylor Swift's performance. I don't know how we can measure that.
I'm going to say no, because she had to tell fans to please stop throwing things at her while she performed. So I'm going to go with no.
So you're saying she didn't perform well?
That's what I'm going to say.
Or
yes,
is that
because people were throwing objects at her?
Well, that's understandable. If you're trying to dodge stuff and sing at the same time,
yeah,
that's kind of hard.
Maybe that's just a South American thing to do.
Apparently it is. Like, I guess that I was reading. I saw a headline today that
and who says Brendan doesn't know pop culture?
Hey, we all got to do research.
I opened the Reddit front page and there it was. What can I tell you? But yeah,
the most prepared show in radio right here.
Taylor Swift asks fans not to throw objects on stage at Buenos Aires concert. Quote, "It really freaks me out." And the first response in this Reddit thread was a story from Kurt Cobain about also playing in Buenos Aires, where they pelted their opening act with mud and rocks and like objects the whole show. So Nirvana played 40 minutes of B-sides and then left. I guess it's just like a thing. You go to a concert in Buenos Aires, you commit
lightly.
Battery. Yeah, I guess that's a thing.
Huh.
So I don't know. If this had been performed, maybe it's an incomplete. Like, maybe this is like small sample size. We need another week of shows in South America to know.
Oh, she's going up to Rio next.
Does she dance on the sand?
I don't know.
Does she dance across the Rio Grande? Do you know that reference?
I thought the Rio Grande is between the United States and Mexico.
Well, have you not ever heard the song Rio by Duran Duran?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the line in the song. I'm just repeating the lyric.
But I don't think that's about Rio. That's not about Brazil, is it?
It's her name is Rio and she dances on the sand. There's a line about the Rio Grande. I'm just repeating the lyrics. I didn't write them.
No, but I thought the Rio Grande isn't in Brazil, is it?
Correct. Her name is Rio.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. But I thought you guys
I don't
were
know
talking
why.
about...
I don't know why me say it took me saying.
No,
it
I know. I thought, but I was trying to tell you. I was like, well, that's not about Brazil. So they need to talk about what is it? What's the real famous beach at Brazil?
Oh my God, there's a song about it.
Yeah, the
Ipanema, the girl from Ipanema. Yeah. Ipanema Beach. I don't know how you spell it. IPANEMA. It is a neighborhood located in the south zone of Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
There you go. You big bossa nova guy?
No.
Okay.
But I just know that there's a very
Ipanema.
important beach in Brazil.
Yeah.
That's like iconic worldwide.
Yeah.
He'll be there.
Maybe. I'm sure he did other stuff while they were there. Or maybe he's like her now. If he's on tour, like if he's visiting her on tour and he has to like hide in a crate the whole day.
I don't think Travis Kelce's as famous in Argentina as
Probably
Taylor
not.
Swift is.
Oh no, the beach
in
I was thinking
NFL
of,
stadiums.
The beach I was thinking of is the Copacabana beach.
Oh, I was thinking of the girl from Ipanema.
Yeah, there's two beaches. There's a
lot of beaches.
It's a coastal nation. The whole half of it is beach.
Yeah. At the
Copacabana.
That's not about the beach. That's about the restaurant.
At the
hottest spot north of Havana.
I know. Anyways,
No, you guys both know that one. Harmonizing and everything.
Her name was Lola.
She was a showgirl.
Ah, great song. Shout out Barry Manilow, though. Barry, come on the show.
Brendan and I have never been in more sync than that right there.
Yeah, what a weird crossover.
It took Barry Manilow to do it. Fantastic. But the NFL this weekend was the games, to me, were terrific. There were so many good games. The Bengals losing, to me, is more about Houston than it is about the Bengals, to be honest with you. Because Houston, just think if Houston didn't lay an egg against Carolina 2 weeks ago, they'd be 6-3 and really in the thick of things. The 49ers just smacked the Jags. I don't know if that's more about the 49ers getting healthy with Debo, maybe more importantly, Trent Williams, or more about the Jags. And if you were to tell me going into the last week, hey, the Jags are, the third best team in the AFC, right? Behind the Chiefs and the Ravens, right? I would say that's awesome. The Jags do not scare me as a Chiefs fan. They just don't.
No, they shouldn't.
Even though it was a close game, they've played them, 3 times. If you're telling me the Jacksonville Jaguars are the 3 seed for the AFC, and that's who you got to worry about is, well, what if the 3 seed Jaguars beat the 2 seed Ravens? Now you got the Jags. I'm shaking in my Nikes right now. Come on. So maybe this is more about the Jags.
They beat them 3 times in 2 years and haven't really had to break much of a sweat in any of those games.
So that's why I look at maybe that's a bigger deal. The Ravens losing. The Ravens have the toughest schedule the rest of the way. We knew that. That was that going into the game. A part of me thinks, hey, that's a really good situation because the Ravens played I want to say that the Browns are a good offense, and they scored 30 on the Ravens. 30. Well, not 30, 33.
Well, not 33 either. I mean,
defense scored.
They got a defensive touchdown.
But if you're giving up, the Ravens defense was supposed to be, the defense, and they got smacked.
Deshaun Watson remembered how to play football in the second half. I don't know what happened there.
First half, he sure did.
In the first half, it was as bad as any quarterback has been. I think he was 1 for his first 10 through the air, and then he was like 14 for 14 in the second half, or 13 for 14, something like that, and ran the ball effectively. That was the other thing. That was very surprising to see the Browns look like that offensively.
And the Ravens just gave up points.
That game had a Vegas total in the 30s, and both teams scored in the 30s.
Yeah,
just a wild game.
Yeah. So I think there are some things to take away from the weekend when it comes to the top 3 teams in the AFC. But the number one aspect, the Chiefs got an absolute gift from the NFL with those 3 teams losing and getting a bye week. What a perfect situation for the Kansas City Chiefs. Just after they lost to the Broncos, you beat the Dolphins, and from the text line, plus either the Broncos or Bills lose tonight. We both love both of those things.
One more relevant than the other, but both enjoyable. Yeah,
both very enjoyable.
Although I don't even know how relevant the Bills losing at this point is, honestly.
And that's what we're going to get to. I want to talk a little bit about the second half of the season, folks. There are some teams that we're used to seeing in the playoffs that we might not see. We'll get to that coming up next. Alrighty, last year in the NFL, we'll go with the AFC first. Okay. Chiefs were the 1 seed, Buffalo the 2, Cincinnati the 3, Jacksonville the 4, Chargers the 5, Baltimore the 6, Dolphins the 7. Okay. Now, what do we know from previous years? That almost half the teams in the NFL playoffs don't return. About 40% do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing in the NFC side. Number 1 seed was Philly, 2 seed Frisco, 3 seed Minnesota, 4 seed Tampa Bay, 5 seed was Dallas, 6 seed was the Giants, and the 7 seed was Seattle. So if you got 14 of those teams, roughly 6 of those teams are not going to make it. 6 of them are not going to make it. On average, over the course of the NFL years, around 40% of teams don't make it. Well, what's going to happen this year? Well, with the Houston Texans, which is still a stupid name.
Accurate.
It's accurate. Still can be stupid.
They are in Texas.
This kind of, hey, honestly, the Houston Texans, better name for a franchise than the Utah Jazz or the Los Angeles Lakers. Okay, we're gonna be real.
Yeah, that's true.
They could have just switched. Those two teams could have just traded nicknames.
Yeah.
Some
40
years ago.
Anyways, the
Saved a lot of
Texans
aggravation.
works, but because of that loss, you ready for this? The AFC North playoff odds, according to ESPN's FPI, with what occurred this week. The Ravens lost, the Browns won, the Bengals lost, and the Steelers, despite terrible play, find ways to win.
They have been outgained in all 9 of their games this season.
Incredible.
And they are 6-3.
Yeah. Anyways.
Whoa.
Anyways.
Yay. Don't we love that?
The Bengals, right now, according to ESPN's FPI, and we all agree this is not ironclad, it's got some positives and negatives to its algorithm and the way it's set up. The Bengals right now have a 33% chance to make the playoffs. This is the Bengals we're talking about. Joey Burrow, the 3-headed offensive monster, Lou Anarumo, Orlando Brown offseason signing. Like 33% chance. Do you I don't want to say do you agree with this, because this is for them statistical numbers. This is not mathematics, or this is not, subjective.
Yeah, you didn't make this up.
This is objective.
They're following a formula.
Yeah. And the reason why their formula consists of a lot of things. It consists of, one, who you are going to play. Okay. And that's the main thing. Right now, the Bengals, if not just the Bengals, because we're going to talk about the good old Buffalo Bills here in just a little bit, because they play tonight. But right now, the playoffs in the AFC, you wouldn't have the Bengals nor the Bills in the playoffs right now. Chiefs the 1 seed, Baltimore the 2 seed, Jaguars the 3 seed, Dolphins the 4, Pittsburgh the 5, Cleveland the 6, and Houston is your 7 seed.
By the way, you want to talk about schedules?
Houston's schedule is like playing the 4 newcomers in the Big 12.
The hardest team they have left is the Jaguars, followed by the Browns. Cardinals, Jags, Broncos, all at home in their next 3 games. At the Jets, at the Titans, home for the Browns, then the Titans again, and then they end with the Colts. That's all for Houston. And you know what Houston has that you cannot say about any of those other teams? They got an elite quarterback.
He's playing well. You look at right now in the AFC, Chiefs were in it last year. The Ravens were in it last year. So were the Jags. So were the Dolphins. But the 3 wildcard teams would be new: Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Houston. So roughly that type of new blood into the playoffs. that game against Houston was so big that the Bengals had to win because that puts them at 6-3, and then the rest of their schedule is difficult. I can see them still finding a way because, if you got 5 good games left, let's say they go 3-2 or even 4-1, because that is a good football team, right? That is understandable.
Is it?
That one loss though there, I'm surprised it's that low at 33%, because and this is why we want to use multiple sources, multiple views. The Bengals, if they beat the Texans, would have had a 70% chance of making the playoffs, according to a different win probability. With the loss, they're below 50%. So there is a gap there. They got 49% to 33%. This is where, you want to look at different models if you want to view these things. But it's now below 50% if you think the Bengals are going to even make the playoffs. Not be the 2 seed, be the 3 seed, make the playoffs.
The argument for the Bengals is a pretty easy one to make. They have a superstar quarterback. They will get healthier on offense. And last year they were 5-4 at this stage of the year, and they won 7 straight. And I know they didn't finish the for shorthand purposes, we'll call it the DeMar Hamlin game, but they would have won that game. Like they were cruising in that game before it was called. They probably win that game. So they would have won 8 straight to close their regular season. And obviously then won 2 more in a row in the playoffs before they ran into the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. So there's precedent for Cincinnati playing their best football in the second half of the season. But they haven't been all that great, impressive here through the first 9 games. They're being outscored on the season, which usually you can look at a team and say, okay, they're 5-4, but they've run into some bad luck. Or, like the Steelers are 6-3, but they've been outscored by 26 points. Like that dovetails, right? You think that's a team that's winning a lot of close games. They've gotten some really good fortune, but like they're not really as good as maybe their record would suggest. The Bengals, 1 game over 500, they've been outscored by 10 points this season. They've played about like a 500 team. And given the relative strength of their schedule down the stretch, that might be about where they end up.
Let's look at the Bills. Let's say the good old Broncos find a way to get her done. Right? Bronco country. Let's ride. The Bills, if they lose, would drop to 40%. Like you mentioned, the Texans have a good schedule the rest of the way. The Bills right now are sitting at 5-4. If they lose to the Broncos, and hey, can the Bills lose to the Broncos? You sure? Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs lost to the Broncos, but they've got the Jets, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Chargers, and the Dolphins left. The Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, and Dolphins. That could be 4 losses. You're looking at that's 8 losses right there, even if you win tonight. Now, I think they might win those, but at the Chargers is not going to be a gimme. The Jets, they already lost to the Jets once. We know that the Bills defense is like the Bills and the Bengals right now. If I'm a Bills or Bengals fan right now, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous right now.
Yeah, you should be. I would say the Bengals, I think right now I'd be more worried is a relative term. But like if I'm the Chiefs and I'm saying like the one team I really don't want to mess around with if they get to the playoffs, like I'd rather see them miss it than make it, even as the 7 seed, it's Cincinnati. I'd much rather see Buffalo than see Cincinnati. Cincinnati maybe only have a 33.33% chance of winning, but I kind of feel like that Scott Steiner math. Like that's a normal man, but I'm a genetic freak and I'm not normal. Like that's not your normal 1/3 chance of making the playoffs team right there.
That's why my other
and
question,
Kurt Angle knows that he can't beat me and he's not even going to try.
That was my next question. Do you think they really do have a 33% chance?
No, I'd put it higher than that.
I'd put it close to 40, but losing that tiebreaker to Houston is rough because I assume that's the number one reason that percentage is so low, because that Houston schedule is remarkably easy. For a team in the AFC, which is just a gauntlet of a conference right now, to have a schedule that is that barren of talent is actually amazing, even for a team that finished last place last year. So the fact that they lost that tiebreaker is going to be tough. Now, granted, Stroud looks great, but still a rookie, still a young team, still a brand new head coach. There is certainly the potential that Houston slides here. Certainly the chance for that.
The one team that I think is the most interesting is not Cincinnati. It's not Buffalo. It's Pittsburgh. Man, Pittsburgh's schedule, they can almost, they still have the Cardinals, although the Cardinals might be different now that good old Kyler Murray is back. We'll have to wait and see there. But you've got the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Colts left still if you're the Steelers. They already got 6 wins in the books. You find a way to get 3 more wins, you get 9 wins, maybe you're doing okay. And if you get to 10, it's almost the sheer fact that all the Steelers have to do is beat the Cardinals, Patriots, and the Colts in 3 straight weeks. And I got a feeling that all Mike Tomlin does is win. You need 1 win then the rest of the way between the Browns, the Bengals, the Seahawks, and the Ravens. That's all you need. You get to 10 wins, you're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They are wild.
They are NFL Iowa. They're the closest thing.
Yeah, easily.
They're the closest thing we have in the NFL to the Iowa Hawkeyes.
God, and they ran for 200 yards on Green Bay yesterday. Do you know how hard it is to make Matt Canada's run game look competent?
Yeah, it's not even a good rushing game, man.
It's an awful rushing game. Najee Harris had a 40-yard run.
Your man looked like Franco Harris.
You know how hard that is to do? That man's got negative burst.
Man looked like Franco.
He freaking did.
Dan.
Kenny Pickett was taken off and running. It was just awful.
Dan, you went there. That was good.
Last point here real quick, because I know we got to get a break. But I think if you're a Chiefs fan, there were 3 teams in the AFC this year that came in with Super Bowl or bust aspirations. The Chiefs, the Bills, and the Bengals. Kind of throws into stark relief. The problems you might think the Chiefs are having as a close observer of that team, those are champagne problems, which are not problems at all, relative to teams that are going to go into week 10 sitting outside the playoff picture in the AFC. You would much rather be in the position the Chiefs are in right now. They have absolutely handled their business in a much better and much more, I think, comforting, for lack of a better term, a much more comforting fashion than these other 2 teams in the league who went into this year. Either people were picking them to beat the Chiefs or had the same aspirations as the Chiefs going in.
Coming up next, we will get to the good, the bad, and the ugly as we recap the weekend. Alrighty, recapping the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know what, Dan? You probably have the best good for the weekend. Give me your good, Dan.
My good, you say. Folks,
Yes.
there was only one college football game that mattered on Saturday.
I'm all right. I like it.
In the 129th playing of the Monon Bell Classic in Crawfordsville, Indiana on Saturday. For the first time ever, we had overtime between the DePaul Fighting Tigers and the Wabash Little Giants. And not just one, mind you, 2 overtimes. It took 2 overtimes to settle this classic after DePaul had an extra point blocked in regulation to make it 27-27 going into overtime. And then disaster strikes on the first possession of overtime as H-back Will Castor is hit with the snap as the man in motion, causing a fumble. Wabash can score and win. But that was when DePaul needed a hero. And boy, did we find a hero. We found a hero to block the field goal. Ethan Lowry coming in to block the kick, sending us to a second overtime. And Wabash may have gotten a field goal, but 6 beats 3. And who else but the would-be GOAT, Will Castor, who came in, by the way, Castor with a K, no relation to our
I was
couple.
like, is that Fulton's long-lost cousin?
Will Castor, who came into Monon Week with all of 2 catches in the regular season, hauls in the 11-yard touchdown catch in overtime. DePaul 33, Wabash 30. First 10-0 season in DePaul history. That's 3 straight NCAC championships, 2 straight Bell wins. We're going to the playoffs. Play Alma next Saturday. You got to get these. We're going to get up in those Scots. Let me tell you what, they're actually really good. And whoever wins plays Mount Union the next week. So, I mean, short-lived story. But,
First ever undefeated season.
First ever 10-0 season
I'm all right.
in DePaul history. I watched it on my phone. I was yelling very loudly in the car outside of the Noble Complex at Oklahoma Baptist on Saturday.
What's
the
this
game ended.
dude doing over here in this truck going nuts? Kansas people. That's probably what that.
It's always great to be a DePaul man, but one of the great things about being a DePaul man is that when we have the bell, there is no best thing about being a Wabash Little Giant. Suck it, losers.
I'm all right with it. All right, Brandon, what was your good for the weekend? Brandon, it was a rough weekend for your favorite teams.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
buddy.
it sucked.
I'm sorry, buddy. I'm
no,
so sorry.
the good, I'll take it back to Friday, and that's Washburn Rural won
How
again.
cool is that?
Really good weekend overall, honestly, for the local programs. I know Seaman and Shawnee Heights, both with tough matchups, they came up short. Seaman poured plenty of points on that Mill Valley defense. They broke in the 40s. Mill Valley scored in the 70s, but still, good effort there. Shawnee Heights had a really tough matchup with a good Blue Valley Southwest team. They fought hard. It's a good runs for both those teams, but Care Paravel wins again.
Yep.
They're on to sub-state for the first time ever. You had Hayden cruising by Parsons, and then our game of the week over on Country 106.9, Washburn Rural, they just keep winning, and it was a great game. The game essentially ended after 3 quarters because Deontay Mitchell, the starting quarterback for Wichita East, got hurt, and that was really crappy to see. But Rural, they stepped on the gas, and they came away with a win.
Yep.
J.C. Heim was unbelievable.
When Rural won their state titles in football, did they go undefeated?
In 89, they did.
Yes.
I think they've won 2. And I didn't know if both of them they went undefeated or not.
I know they did at least in 89. I will check, thanks to our good friends at the Kansas High School Football History Database. I'll be able to pull that up. But yeah, this was the first. This is a stat courtesy of Pistol, but this was going into this week, the first time ever, or the first time since 1989 that Rural had won 10 games in a row. First 10-win season since 92. First time they'd won 10 straight since 1989. And I said on the broadcast to Greg, feels like 1989. And then I paused and said, I don't really know what that's like, but I'm sure for this school it does. Rural did not go undefeated in either 85 or 86.
Okay. So 1 year they went undefeated. So that's awesome. Kudos to
Nah, it's
to
awesome.
Washburn Rural. And that'll be our game of the week. Washburn Rural taking on the Panthers of Derby. And you can't tell me, don't look at me and say that what occurred at the House of Blues last year in March
That's
between
gonna resonate
rural
for-
and Derby
Oh
has
my God.
nothing to do with this. Yeah, right.
There
Yeah,
are some,
right.
I've
there are some
almost forgotten about that.
there are some individuals on the football roster for Washburn Rural who were also on the boys basketball roster last year who remember it's been almost a year. They got hosed. They got
They
screwed.
were cheated. Yeah.
They got cheated out of
like
it.
I said, if you're going to follow the letter of the law, then every single time this year,
Mhm.
if a coach is even a foot past the box, he's getting a technical foul. That's what I expect.
Yep.
I expect that now from officials in high school, but more so Keisha. You got to call technical foul on every single time someone comes on the court when they're not supposed to, which is a coach, which is a player. I want technical fouls. Anyways, that's going to play a factor in there too.
But yeah, shout out to Rural for the win.
Yeah, that's awesome. My good for the weekend, Washburn beat the snot out of Northeastern State. It's been a tough year for the Washburn Ichabods. There the injuries everywhere. I mean, I think close to 18 guys had season-ending injuries this year. And Washburn found a way to get a win over the Riverhawks. So glad they got to end the season on a good note. You got a bad?
Yeah, Jason Bean got hurt. That sucked.
We're gonna get that coming up in the 3:00 hour.
Yeah, I hope he's okay, and I hope he can go. But it sucks.
Yeah, bad. I think certainly I would share that sentiment that it is a real bummer that instead of immediate hype for this Sunflower Showdown, which should be one of the most hyped in a decade and a half, kind of crossing your fingers and hoping that Jason Bean can play. And Lance Leipold struck an optimistic note earlier today at his press conference, but we won't know really until tomorrow what it's going to be. Concussions aren't anything to be played with. So hope for the best for him, hope for his health, and hope he can go. And if he can't, that certainly pours a lot of cold water on what should be a great game.
My bad for the weekend, even though Washburn is not in the playoffs this year. But do you guys realize that 5 of the top 7 teams in the NCAA Division II national poll are in the same region?
You know, I did know that. I saw you tweeted earlier.
Yeah, you told me.
Okay, I'm going to explain this to folks. This would be as if you took the champion from the Big Ten and the SEC. Both of those teams, both of those conferences were in the same region, and only one of those teams makes it out. 5 of the 7 are in the same region. What a joke. NCAA Division II, you're ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So the 5th best team in the region, honestly, could win a national championship. But they're not even going to get out of maybe the first round because the back-to-back Division II champs is going to play Central Missouri. That's how ridiculous this is.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. You got an ugly? My ugly is Oklahoma State. My goodness. You're terrible. The one game that I was more confident in, and they got smashed. Like they quit. End of the game 48-3. Once again, Vegas has the A-time machine.
I was going to do my ugly as the Green Bay Packers giving up 5.7 yards per rush to the godforsaken Pittsburgh Steelers offense. However, I'm actually going to go with the Frankfurt game. Specifically,
The one in Germany.
Okay.
Specifically, I'm going to go with Mac Jones. They had a chance to win. They had a chance to win at the end of the game.
Yes.
And for one drive, the single most important drive of the game, Mac Jones got benched. He is, without question, probably one of the 3 worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And we have potentially all-time tanking wars that are going to go on in the NFL this year. Carolina's awful. They're the worst team in the league. But the Giants and the Patriots, the Bears with their other pick, there's going to be historic attempts to tank for either Caleb Williams or Drake May this year. That is going to be fun. Mac Jones, though, watching him play football, extremely not fun. Bill O'Brien screamed his lungs out at Mac Jones on the
Yeah.
sideline yesterday morning.
Hey, you ready to, Mac Jones might be out of the league in 2 years.
No, I think he's going to be a backup for a really
Yeah.
long time.
You think?
Yeah, I think he's like an ideal backup quarterback because he's not going to, he's not never going to be a guy who threatens your starter, but he's also somebody that can, throw a crosser out.
And if you only give him three, like if you're only calling 3 plays, it's like screen, drag, crosser, like that, you can live with that. It's when you actually ask him to do things that a starting quarterback needs to do, it just doesn't work.
Make plays off schedule.
He just can't do
face
it.
down a pass rush. Yeah, he's pretty bad.
Throw more than 8 yards.
So I have an ugly. Jake, did you ever in your college football playing career watch any film at halftime?
Dan.
I thought you were just going to say watch film.
Dan, do you know when I played?
Mid 2000s, yes.
Early
To mid, yeah.
Dan, we were watching film on my first year we were there. We were watching it on VHS tape.
Okay, so there wasn't a lot of halftime film?
My final year, we watched it on, there was the first year of, it was Huddle. But,
Sure.
the early era of Huddle.
Yeah.
Where nothing could be shared. You didn't, smartphones, didn't even exist back then.
So there's been advances in technology since you played, and players can watch film. Arkansas players, for example, were watching film at halftime of their 48-10 loss to Auburn on Saturday. The problem is the film they were watching was the Polar Express. There is actual video from inside the Arkansas locker room at halftime where the player is standing in front of the television screen, and it is airing the children's Christmas classic, The Polar Express.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Sam Pittman had to apologize for it at his Monday press availability.
Wait, what?
He is super turbo mega fired, by the way. I can't believe they haven't done it already. Not just because of this, but
They
yes.
just gave him, we're talking $75 million.
Yeah, money's clearly no object. What up,
Holy
Jimbo?
cow.
But watch Polar Express at halftime of a game they lost 48-10.
I got nothing. Coming up, we'll talk Sunflower Showdown, KU and K-State. 2, 580 Sports Talk, coming to you on a terrific mid-November Monday. How about that? You know, we complained that we didn't get fall. It's 70 degrees right now. This is not fall. This is the end of summer weather type of deal here happening on November 13th. Like, if you were like, oh, man, Topeka doesn't get fall, I give you November 13th, 2023. If anything, this is like warmer than fall. This is
it is
terrific weather, to be honest with you.
I haven't been able to get my fall fits off, though.
Yeah.
I like sweaters. I like sweatshirts. I got a lot of them. Got a nice new quarter zip for my birthday this year. Haven't been able to wear it.
I'm wearing a quarter zip right now. You can wear the quarter zip. Instead, you're rocking a Metallica shirt that looks like it was from 1986.
It might be.
It's actually from like 2011. But I still got it.
It looks old.
Thank you.
It's hoodie weather.
Yeah.
I got a hoodie on today.
Yeah. I don't like your hoodie, Dan.
Wow.
Well, hold on a second.
Dan, I think you look ugly.
No, like, let me rephrase this. Dan is wearing a hoodie. It's got
school minds.
I almost wore my Minds t-shirt today, actually.
Like, the logo is cool. I get it. That's why. I just,
You played against mine.
Yeah,
and bad blood.
And they took this work 3 straight years.
Oh, then why do you have any animosity? You beat them up.
I don't know, just because I don't know. Although their campus and their setting is fantastic. Oh man, it's really
it's
really
beautiful.
Nice.
Is my hat okay? Do we approve of my hat?
Well, yeah. I mean,
I do not approve of the Royals. No.
I just think it's a cool hat.
Well, I don't.
We spent too many months focusing so much on the Royals. I can't do it anymore.
No, I like the hat. The Cougars, okay.
I'm just messing with you.
No, like it's just I got, it's a school I went. I mean, I don't have any ill will towards them. I guess that was an overreaction. I'm sorry, Dan.
The YouTube comments always like my fits. They'll have my back.
While we're on the topic, do you want to get to some breaking news from Washburn football?
Sure.
Kellen Simoncic, quarterback of the Ichabods, who missed the majority of this season due to injury, just announced that he is entering the transfer portal. Put it on Twitter just 7 minutes ago. Said it's been such a blessing to be a part of the Washburn football program. I will cherish all the relationships and memories I've had here. Thank you, Coach Sherigan, Coach Watkins, for taking a chance on me 4 years ago. With that being said, my family and I believe it's my best interest to explore other options. I will be entering the transfer portal with 2 years of eligibility. Signed, KS.
He's already graduated. He went through senior day festivities, so
good for him.
Wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah.
He's had 2 bummer injuries in back-to-back years. He almost had a full year last year, missed the last game and a half, and then this year he missed virtually 10 games. Played against Pittsburgh State and got injured week 2. So that's not a huge surprise when it comes to when you graduate. Hey, I always said when you graduate, there should be no restrictions on anything. And somebody like, well, you can't graduate transfer if they don't have the degree you want to go to. What a farce that was.
Got to have a different program that's not offered at your current school.
There's so many. I should be in charge of the NCAA.
Love to use my general studies degree and then go get a master's in quantum physics so that I can transfer to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Go Bees.
We will talk with Matt Verderame coming up at the bottom of the hour.
By the way, I got a text from a friend of mine who's a big Swiftie, huge Swiftie. And she sent me a picture of us on YouTube on her computer desktop earlier and said, I will subscribe to your premium channel so I can demand 24/7 coverage of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
We're giving the people what they want with updates from Buenos Aires.
We don't have a premium service, but if you would like to pay us for one, we'll come up with something.
We are accepting cash / bribes.
I'll just Venmo me.
We can be bought.
We'll put our Venmo handles up on the screen.
Venmo's open.
I don't know if we can do that. That's the whole Playola, Plugola type deal. I don't really know.
I don't think so. Not if we provide like an extra service.
I probably should look that up.
That's only
that extra service, all nude. Tastefully done, but definitely
payola
all nude.
Only if they were giving us money, and then we were like, yes, they gave us this mixtape, and now we're going to play it. That's payola. I think if someone gives us money for us to provide them extra content, that's different.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, payola is just bribery.
Yeah, something where
We
only
can be
our
bought.
fans could pay for our content. I don't know what we would call that, though.
Yeah. No idea.
Workshopping a name.
Let's get to some...
You know, one of the guys who was on Chappelle's show, one of the regulars, has like one of the biggest followings on OnlyFans. He doesn't do nudity, but he just like has a talk show and it's on OnlyFans.
Donnell Rawlings?
Yeah.
How about that?
I watched a documentary about it on ABC News one time. Yeah.
That's the only regular. Well, Charlie Murphy no longer alive.
Yeah.
R.I.P. But
Man, that shows a
That's Wayne Brady's son.
the thin line between fries and shakes.
Man, what a great show. That was way ahead of its time.
My mom hated that my dad let me watch that as a kid. I was like 9 in 2003 when that was at its peak.
Oh, gosh, just so funny. Let's get
The
to
racial draft is probably still the funniest thing I've ever watched.
let's get to a little Big 12 football. And let's first start off with the game that was actually close. And that was KU taking on Texas Tech. And I want to mention that the KU defense was outstanding in this game for 58 minutes. Don't know what happened the last minute, to be honest with you. That was unfortunate. But the last minute of the defense plus the red zone execution, play calling was that of Andy Reid. Turnover on downs. The very first time they get into the red zone, first and goal from the 9, you get no points. First and goal from the 8 later on, you get a field goal. First and goal from the 10, you get a field goal. You had 3 trips into the red zone and you got 6 points. If you want to put a arrow to where KU lost the game, regardless of who got hurt or who didn't, you need to look at those 4 possessions. 3 possessions for KU in the red zone, and then the final possession of the game, in which I don't think KU did the prevent defense, but I've always wondered, for 59 straight minutes, KU's defense doing what they had done had stopped the Texas Tech Red Raider offense. Did they change anything the final minute? And if they did, that is where I question, and I am not a coach. Maybe it is more, we wanted to make sure that we kept everything in front of us, which when you do that, you get a lot of short passes, a lot of yards after the catch, and you're just trying to limit the damage. Well, when you only need a field goal and you only got to go essentially 50 yards, it would have been nice to see them go full spags and, put the pressure on the Red Raiders. That was frustrating. But the red zone offense was a huge reason why. And I know some of it is because Chris Ballard was in there and there was no Jason Bean, and the offense essentially just ran the football the entire second half because that's all they could do. But that was a game where, and I credit Lance Leipold, because at the end of the game, in his post-game press conference, he pulled an Andy Reid too. He said, "This one's on me. This one's on me."
Yeah, and I mean that's what you should do in that position.
And that's a good thing. When I say pulling Andy Reid there, I mean, hey, I like
take
that.
accountability.
Yeah, you fall on the sword for your guys.
You do.
Yeah.
You got to take the arrow.
So I'm watching right now. I have in front of me the final few plays for Texas Tech, and I would qualify this as a prevent defense.
I just don't like that.
1st and 10 from the 25, KU sends 3. KU plays a 4-man front. They only send 3. They've got 5 guys in a line from hash to sideline, all playing soft cushion with extra safety help over the top, trying to keep everything in front of you. Well, when you give up, you can still give up chunk plays that way. Next play for Texas Tech, same thing. 3-man front for KU, playing just with these really soft cushions all over the field, and Morton finds a guy on a delayed post, first down pickup. Finally, KU goes back to a more traditional look on the next play, but you ended up with man-to-man coverage across the board, and that ends up being really a misplay by Dotson, who was great all game, by the way. Mello Dotson had an awesome game. Unfortunately, the one play where it mattered the most, he got toasted on a comeback, and you had single coverage, no extra help, big play, and that leads to the field goal. So that's unfortunate, but I personally have a hard time playing the defense because they did their job for the majority of the game. I think the red zone execution was the bigger issue. And look, I love Andy Kotelnicki. I think the vast majority of the time, even though the play calling sometimes irritates people, I think he does a great job with this team. So I have a hard time getting too upset about any one specific game or any one specific series of plays because I understand the big picture. It's been very good. The red zone decision-making, though, on the field and from the sideline, I thought was very problematic in this game. And that was no more obvious to me than the final play of that final KU drive. Devin Neal throws a pass on third down to Jared Casey. And KU's lucky that didn't get actually called back because Casey very clearly shoved a defensive back and they didn't end up calling it, which, I mean, fine. But KU kicks the field goal anyway. I understand that in theory, you are trying to protect your freshman walk-on quarterback who has, before Saturday, taken all of one snap in a game. He took one snap against Iowa State when Bean got tackled by the knees, and Bean came right back in the game.
He handed it off.
Yeah, he handed it off. Most tense handoff of the season to this point, right? I understand you're trying to protect him because he's barely played. He's barely thrown a pass in a meaningful game. But you know what he does in practice every day? Throw passes, run routes, learn the playbook through a quarterback's eyes. I love Devin Neal more than plenty of my family members, okay? You know what he's not doing every day in practice?
Slinging it?
Throwing passes, not dropping back, making plays. And I get trick plays to the goal line. That's a staple for this KU team. That's the whole point, is you're going to surprise people. I'm sure Neal has attempted passes because this was been in the playbook before. But Cole Ballard's job is to call the signals and throw the ball. That's not what Devin Neal's job is. I would have rather just run the ball, honestly, than run a play where your all-world running back is throwing a pass to your number 2 tight end. It's that to me. That's kind of the microcosm of the whole thing, that I understand the problems you are facing and that you're on your third quarterback and that he's just been a placeholder. I understand all of those things. But sometimes you gotta go. Like you still have to take the risk. Because what if that pass gets picked off by Devin Neal? How is that any better than Cole Ballard throwing a pick? Is it a confidence thing? I don't know. That to me was the most frustrating part of this. Because look, it's the Big 12. You lose games sometimes. Tech's gonna play for pride. They got bowl eligibility still on the line. Like they've got a lot to play for.
They got one more game to win.
And I'm not super frustrated about the loss itself. I'm more so frustrated that situationally KU could have done more to put itself in a better spot.
And I also think this. If Jason, and I understand it happened, but if Jason Bean doesn't get hurt, KU wins that game. KU wins the game.
I tend to think so.
Yeah, their defense
KU
played well enough to, I mean, God, they held them to one touchdown, 16 points. Early on in the game, it felt like Texas Tech was just going to run it down Kansas's throat. Like it was just going to be Taj Brooks left, Taj Brooks right. He was going to dominate the game. And then KU got a pretty good handle on him. Maybe because Taj Brooks carried the ball 33 times. And that's a lot to ask of your feature running back. Even if he does average 4 yards a carry. That looks like the B back at Navy with their stat line. 33 rushes for 4 yards a pop. Exactly 4 yards a pop. Maybe that's why he wore down in the second half. Who can say? But yes, the Kansas defense, the unit we were most worried about coming into this season relative to the offense, has continued to make strides week in and week out and put that team in a position to go and win that game. And yeah, you just left a lot of money on the table in a way that in a way that is really frustrating to look back on and feel like, gosh, that was win number 8. That gives Sunflower Showdown even more juice. I didn't think Ballard played bad, to be honest with you.
No.
Given the circumstances, he made a couple of throws. It was one of his first completions, kind of a deep inbreaker. I want to say to Lawrence Arnold that I said, that pretty good throw. I mean, he let it rip. It was a timing route. He got the timing of it right, put it right into the window. I said, he made a couple of plays on the ground. I said, maybe there's something here. But the something is not close to what Daniels, obviously, and then what Bean are going to give you either. So, now I hope we get to see Bean on Saturday. That's for sure.
If Bean doesn't go, that's a drastic situation. Ballard is still, he's a walk-on, but you don't be a walk-on at KU if you don't have a little bit of juice to you.
Well, I mean, shoot, he's higher on the depth chart than at least one quarterback who's on scholarship.
Yep.
Ben Easters has been there for 3 years, and he got passed by Ballard.
But that's you have to throw the ball against Kansas State.
Yep.
If you can't throw the ball against Kansas State, even as good as KU's run game is, and how good Devin Neal and Highshot are, if there's no threat for the pass, that's tough. It really, really is. Coming up, we'll sum up the K-State game. Won't take much. We'll get to that next. Let's get to the little recap from K-State taking on Baylor. and Baylor stinks, and K-State took advantage of that. I
I told you on Friday, man, K-State has responded really well to losses this year, and I'm not surprised they thumped them.
They smashed them. I don't know if it's more about K-State or more about Baylor, but either way, they did everything. Offense, defense. That was impressive. Smoking Baylor. Put up 59 points. That's a lot of points. And in the process, Will Howard became K-State's all-time leading touchdown thrower, which when you think about it, you're like, Will Howard? But then you think about it and you go, okay, well, 2020 and then one and then last year and this year. Yeah.
He's played a lot of football.
And K-State hasn't had a whole lot of. The guy that I thought had more passing touchdowns, and we looked it up, was Josh Freeman. The dude threw it all over the place and had
just not into the end zone.
Yeah, had 9 touchdowns. I was surprised at that. But Will Howard with the all-time passing touchdowns record, so kudos there. And which brings us to that's a recap of that game. Don't need to spend a whole lot of time talking about K-State mushing Baylor.
Only question I have is this going to be it for Aranda? He now, almost through 4 full years, is 23-23.
Yeah, he won the Big 12 2 years ago. That's what's crazy about this.
And won the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
With Mad Rules players.
And then went 6-7 last year, losing a bowl game.
And this year will not make a bowl game.
And this year is not going to make a bowl game.
I feel really good about 2 years ago being off of the Blake Shapen bandwagon. He's not that guy. Real quick, we got bad info. We got bad intel earlier. Josh Freeman threw for 44 career touchdowns at K-State.
You mean the K-State football records Wikipedia page was wrong?
It was wrong?
Yeah, I was wrong. 44 career TD, 6 as a sophomore, 18 or check that. 6 as a freshman, 18 as a sophomore, 20 as a junior.
Okay.
44 career. So that is actually who
he passed.
Yes.
I thought that, because I was like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, the list was funky. It had Skylar Thompson number 2 all time with 42.
Yeah.
And I think whoever edited it accidentally removed Josh Freeman from the list entirely and put Will Howard at the top and accidentally deleted number 1 instead of moving number 1 down to number 2. So bad intel. We apologize. Please stop calling me. You're blowing up our phones. Stop, please. I'm the intern responsible has been fired.
The other situation is a lot of people have been wondering the tiebreaker aspect of what's going to happen. What if everybody wins out? Everybody wins out, and assuming this is K-State here, because K-State only has 2 losses, along with Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. Texas is there. To me, just what I would do is I would say, well, Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma, beat K-State. They beat them both. They're in. But apparently that's not how it works.
It is not how it works.
Which is dumb.
Kellis Robinette broke this down.
Very well. Yeah, and I read that today, and I'm just thinking, if I'm Oklahoma State, I am furious. We beat the 2 teams that we played who are tied with us. How do we not get the nod? And the reason is because K-State and Oklahoma didn't play each other this year, which to me has no business in this.
So the 3-way tiebreaker, if you're going to break a 3-way tie head-to-head, all 3 teams have to have played each other.
That's wild.
And that's not the case because K-State did not play Oklahoma. So if those 3 teams are tied, then the tiebreaker goes to the record against the next common opponent. And Texas is not a common opponent. So then it goes down the list and you run into KU, who in this scenario, Kansas State would have beaten, or Iowa State, who in this scenario, K-State would have beaten, and who has a win. Iowa State has a win over Oklahoma State, and Kansas has a win over Oklahoma. So yes, right now you are rooting for chalk if you're K-State. Just everybody keep winning, because what you don't want to be if you're K-State is in a head-to-head tiebreaker with Oklahoma State, because you will lose that, or a head-to-head tiebreaker with Texas, you lose that.
No, tiebreaker with Oklahoma.
Head-to-head tiebreaker with Oklahoma, you lose because
they beat Texas.
There's no, obviously you don't have a common opponent, but you go to the top of the standings. K-State lost to Texas, Oklahoma beat Texas. So Three-way tie is what you're hoping for. You are rooting for chaos if you are a K-State fan.
But do you get? Maybe I'm different here. Maybe I am. You tell me. I don't really care that. Okay, let's say K-State played Oklahoma and beat them.
Then they'd be 1-1. Yeah.
That doesn't matter because Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma and K-State. Like,
rules is rules, man. I didn't write them.
Like, no, but do you see what I'm saying though? Like, let's say they did play against each other, that game wouldn't have mattered anyway. That game wouldn't matter if K-State and Oklahoma played each other. No matter who wins, Oklahoma State still goes because they're 2-0. They beat Oklahoma and beat Kansas State. So why would it matter that K-State and Oklahoma didn't play? I don't know. That's just
the way the rules are written.
But do you think the rules is dumb?
Not really. I mean, it was mutually agreed upon.
Would you agree upon those rules?
I don't know. I don't think it's that big of an issue, honestly.
Yeah,
I'm not nearly as upset about that.
I just think it's so weird that the two teams that you're tied with, you played both of them and you beat both of them. And now, if let's say Oklahoma beat Oklahoma State, okay, right, and KU didn't get it. K-State didn't get a chance to play Oklahoma. Then I get it. Then you do the go to the next common opponent because K-State didn't get a chance, right? K-State went, 0-1 against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma, State went 1-1, but K-State didn't get a chance against Oklahoma. I would understand that. I would say, yes, you can't do that. But because Oklahoma State beat them both, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. But if you're a K-State fan, come on, Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Come on, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
We need wins. Go get the wins. The rules are the rules. Let's make it work. And if I was Oklahoma State, I'd be very, very upset. Do we think everybody's going to win both games?
They should. I mean, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma are going to be significant favorites. K-State will be they're open to.
They got the toughest schedule with Oklahoma or KU and Iowa State.
K-State is currently a 7.5 point favorite, so a touchdown plus favorite over KU, and that's without knowing if Jason Bean's going to play or not. We'll see how that line moves tomorrow. It'll be interesting. So you're gonna. I bet if Bean is ruled in, maybe the line creeps down closer to the look ahead line, which I think was 4. If Bean is ruled out, I could see that line getting as high as 10.5, 11.5. And then Iowa State, obviously Iowa State thumped BYU. That was awfully impressive. Went to Provo and beat them down. But I would still make K-State at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. The way they've played at home this year, I'd make them at least a 4.5 point favorite over Iowa State.
Who does Oklahoma? Because I know Oklahoma State plays the two new schools. They've got TCU might be interesting.
I don't think it will be.
No, they'll blow TCU out.
No, TCU stinks.
TCU gave Texas all they wanted. All they wanted. No question.
That game's in Norman.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. Coming up next, though, we're going to talk all things NFL with Matt Verderame. Talking all things NFL with our NFL insider. He is Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated and SI.com. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, the Chiefs did not play, but yet gained a whole lot in the week that they had their off week. When it comes to the biggest takeaways for this past week, what's your number one takeaway?
Look, I mean, the Chiefs might be one of the first teams in NFL history to have a bye week and actually get a win. Because it pretty much played out that way. Not to be corny, but I mean, really, it was. I mean, from a Chiefs perspective, my God, it couldn't have been any better. I think the biggest takeaway, really, now, at least from their perspective, is the AFC is the Chiefs to lose. If they go 6-2 in their last 8 games, they're almost guaranteed to be the 1 seed. I mean, for them not to be in that scenario, somebody would have to run the table. They have it all in front of them. And so I would say that's one thing. And then the other thing is, look, I don't know that this strength that we have seen in the AFC in past years is necessarily there. Baltimore lost a ridiculous game yesterday. I mean, that game, you're up 24-9. Watson couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat for 3 quarters. And you gave up 33 points and lost that game. And then over in Cincinnati, you got a game where, look, I think Houston is a good young team. They're an ascending team. Stroud is spectacular. You cannot lose that game if you're the Bengals. And Burrow throws 2 hideous picks in the second half. Boyd drops a touchdown right in his hands that would have put them up and really put the pressure on Houston. And now those 2 teams play Thursday night in a game where if Cincinnati loses that game, there's a real shot they're not even making the playoffs.
Is Houston in that much trouble?
Is Houston in that much trouble?
Or is Cincinnati in that much trouble?
Oh, okay. I was going to say Houston. They're feeling pretty good. Yeah, they are. They have, because when you look at the standings, so they're sitting there 5-4. And I think the reaction is to go, they're 5-4. They're above 500. The problem is they're last in their division right now, and all of those losses, each and every one of the 4, are in the conference. So they're in a position where they're going to lose a lot of tiebreakers because let's just say the rest of the year, okay, they've got Baltimore Thursday, they've got Kansas City, they've got Jacksonville on the road on a Monday night, they've got Pittsburgh twice, you still have to play Cleveland. If they lose 3 more games this year, I think 10 wins probably gets you into the playoffs. The problem is for the Bengals, if they lose 3 more games, they're probably all coming out of the AFC. Yeah, the only NFC game they got left is Minnesota at home. Okay, so they're probably, if they lose 3 more games, which is very realistic in this conference and with that schedule, they're probably not going to get in because they're going to lose head-to-head against Houston. They may lose head-to-head against Jacksonville. Obviously, it's to be determined. They're probably, in my opinion, going to have to go 11-6 to make playoffs, which they could. They could do that. But if they lose on Thursday night, you're now to a point where, you can probably lose 1 more game the whole rest of the year. We all know in the NFL there's injuries, just don't play well for a given game. Cincinnati's really erased any cushion it has at this point.
And let's say they don't make the playoffs. I mean, this was kind of the year that they were pointing to, right? I mean, you got Higgins on the last year of his deal. Chase, you got a lot of eggs in this basket, much like the Buffalo Bills, because the Bills, to me, are in that situation. The Bills cannot falter against the team that they should beat. You can't lose tonight if you are the Bills. If you're the Bills and you lose tonight, I think they're in the same situation that the Bengals are in.
I got to tell you, if the Bills lose tonight, I would bet my house they're not making the playoffs. Their schedule is ridiculous. They still have to go to Miami, go to the Chargers, go to the Chiefs, go to the Eagles. They got a home game against Dallas. They lose tonight, and by the way, all their losses, all 4 of their losses also are in conference. They're done. They're not in the playoffs. I would actually, of the 2, I'm already to the point with Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo's going to make playoffs because I don't think they're beating Philly or Kansas City, and I don't think they're running the table otherwise. You want to give them a loss in Miami, you want to give them a loss at home against Dallas or whatever. I think they're probably getting a 7. And again, look at the conference. Kansas City is making the playoffs. Jacksonville is making the playoffs, one would think. Houston is going to make the playoffs. Look at Houston. Houston plays nobody the rest of the year. The only games they have that are even difficult are Jacksonville and Cleveland. That's it. Like, they're going to win 10 games, and they've already beaten Pittsburgh head-to-head. They've already beaten now Cincinnati. So I really think it's very unlikely Buffalo and Cincinnati make it. One of them, yeah, probably. There's a world where neither one of them do. I'd be surprised if that happens. I think one of them, and I think Cincinnati's more likely, A, schedule's a little lighter, B, they beat the Bills, so they have the head-to-head tiebreaker.
We're speaking with Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Monday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk to break down the happenings in the National Football League. You can find Matt's coverage in Sports Illustrated at SI.com. Find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, the AFC seems to be very deep, but is it deep with just really good teams, or is it deep with teams who can actually win a Super Bowl? Because I think there's probably a difference between the two. So is it depth in terms of quality, or is it depth in terms of elite quality in the AFC right now?
You know, it's funny. I really think you can make a case where if you look at the whole NFL, there's maybe 4 teams that can win the Super Bowl. I know that sounds maybe overstated a little bit. When you really look at the NFL, Philly, Kansas City, San Francisco, and then as much as we just talked about, they may not even make the playoffs, Cincinnati. Like, to me, those 4 teams, the last 4 from last year to me are still the best 4. I don't see anybody else doing it. If somebody wants to throw in Detroit or Baltimore, that's fine. I don't think either one of those teams can win the Super Bowl. Didn't think they could before last weekend with Baltimore. Still don't think they can. I think they're too one-dimensional. I still think there's ways you can really take it to them. And in the AFC in particular, look, I mean, to that point, I think Kansas City and Cincinnati can win the Super Bowl. And if you want to toss in the Ravens, fair enough. Miami's not doing it. Miami hasn't beaten one good team in 2 years. Jacksonville just got absolutely demolished at home by the 49ers. And you look at Lawrence. Lawrence doesn't have 10 touchdown passes this year. Their offense is very hit or miss. They haven't scored against good teams. You look at Buffalo. I don't even think Buffalo's making the playoffs. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, the Chargers. I mean, those are all teams that maybe could win a playoff game. I don't even think Pittsburgh can do that. Yeah, I think there are 2 teams, maybe 3, if you want to squint, in the AFC that can win a Super Bowl. But I think Kansas City is clearly, despite its issues, the best team in the conference. And then to me, Cincinnati still remains the biggest threat.
You mentioned San Francisco as one of those 4 teams that can win a Super Bowl. They got back to their very best on Sunday. They decimated Jacksonville 34-3. Who did that game say more about to you? That the 49ers getting right, or is that Jacksonville maybe being exposed?
You know, it's funny. I actually was thinking about that this morning. I was working on my quarterback rankings. I think, to me, personally, it says more about Jacksonville because I'm not surprised the Niners came out and played really well. Now, I'm surprised they won by 31 points. But the Niners, like, teams go through peaks and valleys during the season. And we live in this age where everybody's got to have a hot take every 5 seconds because there's a million networks. Somebody has to say something to make sure that they can get a 12-second soundbite on Twitter and get a bunch of reaction out of it. But the reality is the 49ers are a really good team. They're flawed. You can throw the ball on them if you can block them, but you got to be able to block them. Purdy, if you can get ahead of them and you can make him have to throw out an obvious passing down, they've got problems, which is why I think Philadelphia is still the better team and has been the better team. But to do those things to the Niners, you got to be really good. I mean, you got to be a really good football team, or they got to have a really bad day. And where Jacksonville, I like Jacksonville. I like Peterson a lot. I think Lawrence is a very good quarterback. But the Jags, I do think they stay of a ceiling. I mean, it's when they're on defense, who's the guy? Who's the guy that you look at and say, that guy's going to turn the tide? Is it Josh Allen? Is it a Lewickin? Maybe. But I don't look like they don't have a Hassan Reddick, a Nick Bosa, a Chris Jones. They don't have that guy. They just don't. And offensively, like, I like the collection of guys. They don't have A.J. Brown. They don't have Travis Kelce. They don't have Jamar Chase. Like, I think they're a very quality team, but I think they're a team that when you get in the playoffs and you've got to have it, and it's 3rd and 8 on either side of the ball, and who's going to make that play? I think those big-time contenders, they're just more equipped than Jacksonville is.
Matt Verderame, our guest here on 580 Sports Talk, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Is this Josh Dobbs thing for real in Minnesota?
I think it's for real. They're going to make the playoffs. I do think that. I mean, the NFC, we talked about the AFC, you have to have 10 wins probably to get in. Maybe that's not even enough, depending on some tiebreakers. Well, you have 9 wins in the NFC to make the playoffs. And Minnesota's 6-4, and their schedule is not easy, but it's also like conducive to them being over 500. They should have some wins in there. So, yeah, look, Dobbs was pretty decent in Arizona. Like, look, this is a sentence that's probably been said about 3 million times in the last 100 years. I don't understand the Cardinals. I don't get it. Like, you had a guy who at least is, like, competent, and you gave him up for nothing to a really desperate team so you could start Clayton Tune for a week. What? Like, did you not watch Clayton Tune all year in practice? I'm not trying to bag on that kid. Like, he did what he could do, fine. But, like, you gave Dobbs up for nothing. You're not going to get a first-round pick for him. Like, couldn't you got a 5th? Couldn't you got maybe like a late 4th or something? Like, and so for Minnesota, Dobbs, there's going to be some games where, that carrot turns into a pumpkin and doesn't play well. And that's just going to happen. But is he good enough to win 3 more games this year and get into the playoffs? And, like, they're at least halfway decent in the playoff game? Yeah, probably. So it's a great story. He's a terrifically smart young man, and he's played very, very well. And he's been a real shining light for a team that needed one in the worst way. It would custom one now.
Speaking of great stories, the Las Vegas Raiders are 2-0 under Antonio Pierce. Is this just the post Josh McDaniels playing lousy New York teams dead cat bounce, or have the Raiders maybe found a spark here these last 2 weeks and can be a tough out, at least maybe a spoiler, a thorn in somebody's side here in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think it's probably somewhere in between. I mean, look, beating the Giants at this point should come with an asterisk. Okay, I mean, the Giants are just brutal. They're not winning another game this year. They're not even going to compete in most games this year. Talking about, I was saying Clayton Tune's outmatched me. Tommy DeVito. I don't say this about many quarterbacks, many players. I feel bad for him. Like, it really is to a point, like, it's malpractice to put him out on the field. He cannot do it. The Giants, just go sign somebody and put him in there. And do something, do anything. But regardless, look, the Raiders, you win 16-12 over Zach Wilson. Aiden O'Connell was terrible in that game. But, like, Zach Wilson. So, they kind of canceled out. Their next 2 games are against the Dolphins and the Chiefs. I suspect that reality is going to be brought back pretty significantly in those 2 games. The Raiders will fight harder because they like Pierce, and Pierce knows how to relate to them as a player, as a former player. And let's face it, he's not Josh McDaniels, so that's probably a big win, just that alone. They will play hard. I do not think they have any shot to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to beat really good teams, because when you look at it, like, now, if you ask people in the league, everyone will tell you Thanksgiving is when the NFL season starts for contenders. That's when good teams, really good teams, start to rev it up, put their best foot forward. They start to condense the playbook. They start to get rid of stuff that doesn't work, start to feature things that do. Like, I don't think you're going to, from probably about this weekend coming up on, you're just not going to see as many upsets, because a lot of these teams now are going to say, okay, we're going to handle business. Like, we have to handle business now. I don't think the Dolphins, the Chiefs, teams like that who are on that schedule, I don't think they're going to fall prey to the Raiders.
Matt, you mentioned about good teams. We start finding out in Thanksgiving. How do you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers outside of Mike Tomlin just wins games? I know a couple of their wins aren't against the greatest teams with the Packers and the Titans. I know when the Raiders were playing, when they were, it wasn't great, but they beat the Browns. They've beaten the Ravens. How do you look at this Steeler team, which they've been outgained in every single game, yet they're 6-3?
they're not good. But Mike Tomlin is a Hall of Fame head coach. And I will give them one thing that you just have to say if you watch them every week. Like, defensively, they just make like one or two plays in games that just swing the entire thing. They get a red zone turnover. They score. They've done a lot of this without Minka Fitzpatrick and Hayward have been hurt. I mean, they've really done the job. And so the defense deserves a ton of credit. The problem is going to be in their schedule. We've talked a lot about that now at this time of year, I guess. Their schedule is very hard. They still have to play Cincinnati twice. They still got to go to Baltimore. They go to Cleveland this Sunday. Like, this is where you'll look at them and go, all right, can you find 4 more wins? Now, the good news is for them, they have the easiest 2-game swing in NFL history when they go home later in December and they play the Cardinals and the Patriots at home in the span of 4 days. So that should be 8. But man, it's tough. It really is. Like, I don't know that this is going to continue. Pickett just cannot make plays. And it's not to denigrate him. It's just when you watch them, there are so many yards left on the table because he just cannot make the throw. The line is okay, but it struggles at times. It's just a team that you talk about having multiple ways to win, and that usually is the sign of a really good team. Pittsburgh is one way to win. The offense can't just throw up all over itself for 60 minutes. And the defense has to just make 2 or 3 big time plays. But again, as you get later in the year, these good teams are really starting to hit their stride. It's hard. That is a hard thing to do. They might make the playoffs. I'd be shocked if they win a playoff game. But Tomlin, every year, just continues to show what a great coach he is.
Real quick, Matt, I just wanted to revisit the talk about how awful the New York Giants are. Specifically, I mentioned earlier, we could be in for some all-time tanking around the NFL this year with how bad they are, how bad the Patriots are. Bears are going to get at least 1 pick in the top 3. Where do you think those top 2 picks are going to end up going? Do you think the Pats and how miserable they are can out-tank the Giants?
Well, in 2 weeks, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Those 2 teams are going to play each other.
Yes! Sunday night football.
In what really might be a game that causes an FBI investigation. I mean, that game's going to change some lives. Look, I think the Giants are not winning another game this year. I mean, the only way they do is if Taylor comes back, Tyrod Taylor comes back and he plays. But if you're the Giants, why? Right? I mean, at this point, unless you just literally feel like I feel, and you feel so bad for Tommy DeVito, you're like, we just can't do this to this kid anymore. I think Carolina's going to have one of the worst records, and their pick belongs to Chicago. I think it's going to be Giants. I think it's going to be those 2 teams. But the Patriots are that other team that is looming there that might get it done. But I'll take the Bears through the Panthers and then the Giants.
Matt, as always, we appreciate the time breaking everything down. Next week, we'll talk more Chiefs and Eagles on Monday Night Football. As always, thanks for the time.
You got it. Anytime.
Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated, SI.com on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Who do you got? Worst record?
Panthers are going to have the worst record.
Yeah, it's going to be the Panthers. And Frank Reich's going to get fired.
Which is good. You could tell from like 3 weeks in.
I thought that would have been a good hire.
I thought so too. I lauded that hire when it happened, but it's clear he doesn't have it.
He even admitted, like, they asked him on Thursday night, like, what do you have to do to fix this? And he didn't have any answers. When you can't answer that question in your post-game press conference, it's time to go.
And I know Tepper had to pay a lot of money to get rid of Matt Rule too, but he's so way too over-involved in that team. I'm sure he's going to fire Reich.
Giants will have the second worst. I agree with Matt. They're not winning another game.
Coming up, we'll talk more AFC. What is wrong with you? And hear from Andy Reid. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 3 here on this Victory Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. It will be a Victory Tuesday tomorrow if Lance Leipold tells us that Jason Bean is going to play. Then it's a Victory Tuesday because that's what I want. I really, really want that. We got a lot more to get to coming up final 2 hours. We're going to hear from Andy Reid. He spoke to the media today. We'll also get what is wrong with you. Headlines coming up. A lot of things happening over the weekend, to be honest with you. Monday Night Football tonight. You've got the Broncos at the Bills. Got any chance for the Broncos? Can they pull a Chiefs type of game?
They force a bunch of turnovers, and Josh Allen, every now and again, has been known to be a little loose with the football.
The Giants got within one play of beating the Bills.
Yeah. Should have.
The Broncos are better than the Giants.
They should have had another opportunity to beat the Bills. That was pass interference.
Failing that, though, I don't think they're going to be +4 in the turnover department tonight. And it's on the road in Buffalo. Like, find an alternate spread for this one. I think Bills are favored by 7 or 7.5, maybe even 8 in some places. Find an alternate spread. This feels like Bills by double digits, but take the under too. I like the under 47.5. I just don't think Denver's offense was fixed because they scored 3 short field touchdowns on the Chiefs 2 weeks ago. I don't think that. Oh, Russell's cooking. Yeah. No, stop. Get some help.
How about real quick? How about Matt Verderame saying that he doesn't think the Bills are going to make the playoffs?
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Wow.
They got a tough schedule. It doesn't feel like they're going to win that division, and they'd be on the outside looking in if the season ended today.
They've lost 4 games right now. They got Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, and Dolphins the rest of the way. Let's say they go 2-2 there. So that puts them at 6 losses. I think they're still going to make the playoffs. See, I think the Bengals have a harder chance of making the playoffs than the Bills do.
The Bengals are also better than the Bills.
Yeah, that's
going 2-2, meaning you're going to have to beat the Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, and Dolphins. I mean, they honestly could go probably more likely 1-3 against those 4 teams, which then would put them right now with 7 losses, and so you can't afford to lose another one. But oofda. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. You can log on to our YouTube page and join us in our stream. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Go to youtube.com and then type in 580 Sports Talk. Hit the subscribe button. It is very simple and very easy if you want to interact with us on this Monday. I will say this, if they do lose to the Broncos, they will not make the playoffs. This is the de facto playoff elimination game for the Buffalo Bills. If you lose and you are sitting at 5-5 with 7 games to go, you're not right in the ship. That ain't going to happen, especially with the Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, and Dolphins yet to go. I know the Chargers are not
they gave up 41 points. That defense is getting worse.
That offense can still score. That's why the Chargers are just the most unique team in the NFL. Maybe it's because the Chiefs and Chargers always play good games, and my view of the Chargers is completely different. That might be it. Because they always play against the Chiefs well, and you're like, wow, this team, this got a lot of talent. And yet they lose games all the time. All the time. They're going to have a new head coach at the end of this year. I don't think Staley's coming back.
No. At this point, why?
Yeah, run it back, man.
Unless I would do it now. I wouldn't even what the ceiling is with Brandon Staley, right? And we've started to see, and we'll talk about this more in headlines, college football programs not giving coaches the chance to rescue their jobs. If you've just decided the best thing is a clean break, just do it now. Like last year when Texas Tech fired Matt Wells, or 2 years ago when they fired Matt Wells.
Did West Virginia screw up by not firing Neil Brown because
Yes.
they went to a bowl game this year. They won 6 games.
Yes.
Yes, they did. They absolutely screwed up. Yes. But like that's the trend. And coaches, like 2 coaches who won games by like healthy margins on Saturday got fired on Sunday morning because you don't want to give those coaches a chance to salvage some goodwill and rally the troops and rally the fan base. No, you've decided we know what this is. We know what the top end of this is, and the top end of this isn't good enough. The Chargers have to know what the top end of this is with Brandon Staley at this point. And it isn't good enough. It's a wild card and a first-round loss. That's your top end. You're not getting any better than that with this iteration of Los Angeles Chargers and Coach Brandon Staley. You're not, because if he's supposed to be the defensive guy, why are their defenses getting worse? Why have they been progressively worse on defense over time with Staley as their head coach? So if you know what it is, just cut the cord now. Don't give him a chance to rescue his job, go 4-1 here in a stretch.
I mean, it's pretty obvious.
I
Peter
want him to
principle.
stay.
Like
I want him to stay.
He was a good defensive coach with the Rams. The Rams defenses, they had a lot of talent, but they were good when he was there for a couple of years under Sean McVay. Now he is tasked with being the team's number 1 decision maker and having to have a hand in the offense as well and more in personnel and stuff like that. And he can't coach a defense anymore. Some guys just aren't built for it.
I for one, want him to stay. I'm bummed the Raiders, Hey, a great day was when the Raiders decided to hire Josh McDaniels. That was a great day.
Well, yeah.
So
although you've had to worry very little about the Raiders for most of your life at this point. When was the last time you had to worry about the Raiders?
I mean, they did make the playoffs one year. They had the same record as the Chiefs, but then Derek Carr broke his leg, and then they had to start
Matt McGloin.
Matt McGloin. That's Penn State legend.
Do you know Matt McGloin is now in the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives?
Good for him.
What?
Yeah, he was elected last week.
Yeah,
in election. He's now a member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. Ran as a Democrat and won.
Huh, how about that? Speaking of the AFC, Dan, you posed this question. Is this the best the AFC has been since Mahomes has gotten to Kansas City? Is this it? Is this the best when it comes to who they're going to have to beat?
I feel like
real quick, last year it was the big 3.
Right.
It was Cincinnati, it was Buffalo, and Kansas City. And the reason why getting the 1 seed was so important was you didn't have to play both the Chiefs and the Bills. The Bengals had to play both the Bills and the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't have to. They got to play the Jags, right? The year before that, you were sitting pretty nice. I mean, one of the years that the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl, the Titans were the number 1 seed. One year, the Ravens were the number 1 seed and didn't even make it to the title game.
Mm-hmm.
So is this the hardest that it's been?
I mean, yeah, because more than anything, the number 1 reason why is the highest concentration of good quarterbacks is in the AFC. I mean, look at all the teams you've got listed here. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, at the very least, is in the very good quarterback category. Miami, Tua has had a really good season. They're deeply flawed, but very good. Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett doesn't count because he's worse than all these guys, but also like they defy science. Like that's a different team. Cleveland has an all-world defense. Their quarterback is nasty, but Trevor Lawrence, probably not great, but is pretty good. Joe Burrow is in that elite class. Josh Allen is somewhere between the very good and elite class. CJ Stroud looks like the next big thing. He's on pace to throw for 5,000 yards this year.
Yeah, he really slinging it here recently.
He leads the NFL in yards per game as a passer.
2 games ago, he got outplayed by Bryce Young in a loss.
Yeah.
And 2 games later, people are talking about him in the MVP conversation.
And you just look up and down the entire AFC, and all these teams that are in contention have good quarterback play, have very good quarterback play. Whereas, and the Chargers, who stink, they still have Justin Herbert, who I know, is he actually all that great because he doesn't win? I mean, you watch him throw, he clearly has.
Man, he threw one of them balls that was on an absolute rope in between like 8 dudes.
He threw it through Kirby Joseph's body.
Yeah.
Like he threw it through his body. Whereas in the NFC, by comparison, what do you got? You got
Hurts, you got Goff, Purdy, Derek Carr, Geno, Dak, and Dobbs.
Okay. I think the discussion is over.
Okay.
I think we have finished this topic.
The question I want to ask you, though, but I'm not talking about quarterbacks. I want to talk about teams, because you just told me that.
Well, that's why those teams are good. That's why the baseline for them is good, because outside of the Steelers and the Browns, who have top-end defenses, you're talking about good to great quarterback play.
And guys who you look at that team and say, even on their worst day, because they have Burrow or because they have Allen or Lamar or even Trevor on a good day, they're going to have a chance because they've got that guy.
The reason I want to just throw this out there is, if the Chiefs, let's say under the prep, do you think the Chiefs offense is going to get at least a little bit figured out?
Yeah. Yes, they will be a top 5 offense in the league by the time the season is out.
So let's say the Chiefs offense figures it out a little bit, not like to the tune of what it's done in the past, where they're averaging 30 a game. Okay. How many of these teams, if the Chiefs offense does improve, that you go, yeah, that's a team that can really threaten the Chiefs? And I say that because Matt Verderame just told us that the Bills might not even make the playoffs. So why should you be worried about the Bills? Okay. Houston, right? Houston with a rookie quarterback
and rookie head coach,
whose schedule sets up to be very beneficial because they play trash teams. We just talked about at the beginning of the show. Is Jacksonville? Are you worried about when the Chiefs got Jacksonville? You were like, oh man, we're in trouble. Like Jacksonville couldn't even beat the Chiefs when Patrick Mahomes went down for three and a half quarters.
Well, this is why I phrased the question to Matt Verderame the way I did, because I think there's a difference between being a good team, and there are undeniably, I think there are more good AFC teams than there have been. But there's a difference between being a good team and being a team that can win a Super Bowl. Do I think Pittsburgh can win a Super Bowl? Absolutely not. Do I think Cleveland can win a Super Bowl? No. Do I think Houston and CJ Stroud are winning a Super Bowl this year? No. Jacksonville? Absolutely not. Miami? I don't.
Like
I still think it's Kansas City and then Cincinnati if they get right. And that's kind of it as far as teams I think cannot get to the playoffs, because that's one thing, or be a tough out in the playoffs, because that's another thing too. But win the 3 games and hoist the Lombardi trophy, it's the Chiefs and the Bengals if you catch them on the right day. And that's kind of it.
Like, I don't think Pittsburgh, if I look at it as, if the Chiefs play this team, am I going to be super worried? And right now, because the Chiefs offense is still where it's at, but I'm going to go under the premise of, let's say the Chiefs offense figures it out. Okay. I don't think Pittsburgh can beat them. I don't think Cleveland can beat them. I don't think Jacksonville can. I don't think Houston can. I think the teams that can are Baltimore, Miami, because I do think Miami's defense will get better. And I don't know if Cincy or Buffalo are going to make the playoffs. Like, that's the thing. In order to, you got to get to the dance, right? That's a big factor in this, because we're talking here on November 13th. I don't know if they're going to get into the dance. They might not be invited. They might not. And so the reason why, and I agree with you, Brennan, the reason why Cincy is scary is because of Burrow. The reason why Buffalo is scary is because of Josh Allen. But what if they're not even invited? Now it comes down to, do I think Baltimore or Miami? That's it. If Cincinnati doesn't get invited, and let's say they lose another game, let's say they lose to the Chiefs and they lose to the Ravens and they finish 9-7, and because I can see Cincinnati losing 3 more games. Like, that's what makes me wonder, is this era the deepest? It might be, but I'm right now, after setting it here at 7-2. Am I more concerned about last year and the Chiefs' chances to get out last year, or this year? Man, I think this year is setting up to be much, much better, just for the sheer fact that, Buffalo and Cincy kind of are, eating their own young, if you will. They're not doing, they're doing what the Chargers always seemed to do. and not take care of business against the other teams. And that's why I look at this and I go, I think as long as the Chiefs' offense improves, Baltimore is there, but like you kind of said, sometimes Baltimore doesn't really get it done in the playoffs.
They lose games they got no business losing.
So
which is weird about them because, you catch them on the right day like Detroit and Seattle did. They look awesome. They look like they could be the best team in the league some days.
But this is all, do you think the Chiefs offense will, like if the Chiefs offense is right now the offense that they've got the rest of the way, then, I think Baltimore can beat them. I think Miami can beat them. I think Cincy could beat them in the playoffs. I think Buffalo could beat them in the playoffs because I'm if
it's merely a top 8 offense in the league rather than a top 5 or top 3.
Because their offense has been just a complete game changer. Whereas it's not this year. They scored 14 points against the Dolphins. They scored, but I think there's reason to be optimistic for the Kansas City Chiefs offense. But man, like it's hard for me to stomach what other people are saying about the Bills and the Bengals. Like to me, they're still the Bills and the Bengals. Like I look at them and I go, I don't want to play both of them. I don't want to play them in the divisional round, and then I sure do. That's why it was such a blessing last year to get the 1 seed.
Because they have the best quarterbacks of the group that we're talking about.
But team-wise, they're not as good as they were last year. Do you agree?
That's what the records say about them. I still think from top to bottom, the team I would least want to play in an AFC championship game is the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
Which I think backs up the point you're trying to make, where if they're not even in the dance, then I'm not all that worried about the other teams. You can make an argument for the other team, sure, but I think the strongest argument still belongs to Cincinnati.
That's why I hope they lose. I hope Buffalo loses tonight. Go Broncos.
Texter from the 785 says, I'd say there's more depth in the AFC this year. Maybe the top end, i.e. the Bills and the Bengals, aren't as threatening as they have been recently. Also, Mark in the YouTube comments asked if the Lions are a Super Bowl team. Maybe. I don't think we'd be talking about them like that in the AFC, but in the NFC, could they?
Yeah,
probably. They'll be the 2 seed. Like they're on track to be the number 2 seed.
Schedule's
play a lot
good.
of home games.
Schedule's good. Coming up next, we got What Is Wrong With You, and then we'll hear from Andy Reid.
Time here on 580 Sports Talk, our first What Is Wrong With You of the week. I'm Brendan. He's Dan. Thanks for hanging out with us today. What is wrong with you today and every day is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications, which saves you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal with Top City Metal Supply, which you can find on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field.
Real quick, before we get started with a new week, what was our winner last week?
Our winner last week was the firework helicopter shooter.
Yeah.
Jake had a strong story that he brought to the table involving, I got to pull this one up, a plane that took off without realizing that 4 of its windows were broken.
Oh, no.
Including 2 that were just straight up missing.
Oh, dear.
And people on the plane thought, why is the air pressure weird? Why is it hard to breathe? Why is it so cold? And they found out that there were just windows that were missing from the side of the plane. But that did not beat out the guy who shot the firework at a helicopter.
A years-long feud with a wedding venue.
So funny. All right, Dan, you're up first today. What do you got?
All right, we're going to Lebanon, Indiana. And yes, that is how they pronounce it. It is spelled Lebanon, but they pronounce it Lebanon, where we meet a 34-year-old man from Chicago. He's under arrest after robbing a jewelry store and leading Lebanon police on a high-speed chase Saturday evening. According to the Lebanon Police Department, shortly before 5:30 p.m. on November 11th, dispatchers received a 911 call from a K Jewelers. Every crime begins with K, located at 2438 North Lebanon Street. I don't know if they pronounce the street in town Lebanon, or maybe they pronounce that Lebanon. I don't know. I've never been. I just know people from there. The caller said a man had stolen an undetermined amount of jewelry and fled southbound on State Road 39. Every crime begins with K was a better joke than you give me credit for, by the way. I hope some of y'all in Radio Land laughed.
That was a good joke, Dan.
Brendan no-sold me. Shortly after the call was made, a Boone County Sheriff's deputy saw the vehicle fleeing and tried to pull the driver over. When the car did not stop for police, Lebanon police officers joined the pursuit. A suspect then fled northbound on I-65. According to officers, during the pursuit, the suspect began sticking his hand out the window, motioning to officers. The suspect eventually hit a Thorntown Police Department vehicle and continued to flee. Officers with the Thorntown Police Department, Tippecanoe County Sheriff's Office, and Indiana State Police then all joined the pursuit. Officers were eventually able to box the suspect in and place him under arrest. When asked why he was motioning to officers, the suspect was quoted as saying, "I was trying to tell you you're not supposed to pursue me." He was waving them past. Go around, guys. Go around. Nothing to see here. The suspect is preliminarily charged with criminal mischief, theft, resisting law enforcement, possession of marijuana, reckless driving, leaving the scene of an accident, and operating a vehicle without a license. It reminds me of the line in that I Think You Should Leave sketch where Tim Robinson's character is wearing the safari hat with the flaps, and he says, "It's illegal for you to ask me that. It's illegal for you to pursue me after I knocked over a jewelry store."
That's so funny.
Go around.
Oh, man, that's tremendous. You weren't supposed to pursue me. My story today is going to take us to Tampa. I would like to ask you first, what are some things you like to do? What are some things you're passionate about doing? Things you really enjoy doing on a regular basis?
Watching sports.
Watching sports.
I like to read.
Reading.
Get down on some video games here and there.
Sure. Well, I will tell you this. You do not love any of those things or doing those things nearly as much as James Joseph Scanapico loves robbing banks. Because a Tampa Bay man has been arrested on fraud charges after he stole nearly $450,000 while visiting 36 Pinellas County banks and using 20 fraudulent names or stolen identities at them. Scanapico, a 45-year-old, is facing charges of scheming to defraud and fraudulently using other people's personal information. He's also wanted in other Florida counties, including Hillsborough, on similar charges. Arrest affidavits indicate the Pinellas County swindles occurred in September and October, mostly targeting Fifth Third Bank locations in St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Largo, and Palm Harbor. The defendant has conducted himself in an ongoing systematic course of actions with the intent to obtain money from the banks using fraudulent practices with stolen identities, according to one affidavit. Records indicate that both the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office and Clearwater Police Department have been involved in an investigation. Scanapico was arrested and booked at the Pinellas County Jail on Thursday, where he remains today. His total bail amount was $149,200. A judge has ordered that should Scanapico bail out of jail, he must wear a monitor and stay away from Fifth Third banks and the people whose identities he stole.
He's like Cameron off Bigger Picture. I might be Charles Johnson, John Bronson, Oscar Martinez, Omar Swanson.
He stole.
He got so many names.
20 identities. 20 different IDs to go knock over banks. That's what this guy was doing. Just loves robbing banks over and over and over. Or robbing in a non-traditional sense. Like, he wasn't going in with a gun and saying, give me your money. Oh, by the way, here's my fake ID. But he was withdrawing money from the banks.
I need to do a little math on this, if you don't mind giving me a moment. So nearly $450,000. So not even 450 grand. Divided by 36 banks. He's averaging $12,500 a bank.
Per bank.
That seems kind of piddly when you put those numbers on paper like that. Like, he's not going for the big scores. He's just, hoping that consistency he's an accumulator. He's the Frank Gore of bank robbers.
I was going to say maybe this was his thought process of how he was going to go undiscovered.
Yeah, like, nobody will notice if it's just, 13 grand here, 10 grand there, 15 grand here.
Now, if you
people notice.
Yeah, eventually.
Especially the people whose money that actually is.
If you do it now per identity he stole, it looks to be about $22,500 per victim.
Okay, yeah, because those victims are going to notice that much missing.
You would think,
damn sure.
You would assume so. Yes, that's 10,000 more per capita if you base it on the number of IDs he stole. But he must have used some at multiple banks because the math doesn't add up quite right otherwise. Whereas some people said, I'm only going to use this one once. I'm only going to be Chauncey Billups one time. They're not going to believe that at other places. I don't know why I came up with Chauncey Billups.
I am McLovin.
Yeah, we got another McLovin on our hands. He stole money from 36 different banks.
That is a lot.
That is a lot of banks.
Really spread himself thin.
This dude loves fraud.
Fewer attempts go for a bigger score, less of a chance to get caught, right? It's like the philosophy of, like in football, you want to make splash plays, right? Because it's harder to drive the ball, matriculate it down the field, unless you play like service academy football. Not a lot of like 20 play, 80-yard touchdown drives, right? Because eventually you mess up.
Yeah.
But if you hit one play for 60 yards, fewer chances to get the old fuzz on your tail.
So I have to imagine he did some research into what the maximum amount is that you can withdraw before someone says, hey, I need to get my manager over here. Like, hey, we need to verify your identification first, right? Because if you're saying, oh yeah, I found out that I can withdraw $10,000 from this bank in Hillsborough County before someone will say, hey, we need more ID. And you just go for 10,000. You try to stay underneath, try to stay under the radar. Whereas the other logic is, oh yeah, I want $50,000, please, right now, and give it to me in cash. Do not check my fake ID. Like, then you're going to set off some alarm bells, I think. This guy just loves committing bank fraud. All right, our two stories today. The guy who's addicted to bank fraud, or you're not supposed to pursue me.
I'm supposed to get away with this. This was the plan. I'm going to rob you. Then I'm going to drive away, and the police are going to be cool about it. Nobody's going to chase me. I'm just going to leave with my jewelry.
I'm just going to do my own thing.
Yeah, I think that guy wins. The audacity to tell the officers after they pulled him over, I was waving you past.
I kind of like the honesty. Like, you weren't supposed to do this. This was supposed to work differently.
Like, they might believe him. Like, waving his hand out the window. It's like, maybe they'll think that the real perpetrator is in a different vehicle.
Yeah.
And they'll leave me alone.
A car that looks like mine, but isn't. Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's pretty good. Although I do like that this guy was racking up insane. He was a volume shooter.
Yes.
Monte Ellis of committing bank fraud. But our winner for today, Mr. You're Not Supposed to Pursue Me, the guy who robbed the K Jewelry store in Indiana. He is our winner today in What Is Wrong With You. As always, What Is Wrong With You is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. You can find it halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field right here in the capital city. Coming up on the other side of this break, we'll hear from Chiefs head coach Andy Reid. The Chiefs are back in action this week. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk on this November 13th, 2023. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Andy Reid spoke to the media earlier on. Was it weird for you on Sunday not having Chiefs football to watch?
A little bit. The bye week gives you a chance to, maybe check out some other games instead of being so hyper focused on watching one. And it was nice, though, I think, to have the weekend off from that particular, angst, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Gives you a chance to reset a little bit.
Yes.
Like, all right, get myself prepared for what is going to be a lot of Chiefs football between now and the first week of February.
The bye week's good for everybody. If we're being really honest, the bye week is good for everybody.
I really wish the Packers bye week was coming later this season because it's just all Packers the rest of the way. And we're bad.
Hey, they almost won.
Yeah. Got gashed by Matt Canada.
Jordan Love played better.
He was better, yeah, and wasn't like good. The worst thing is that Christian Watson stinks.
Oh no.
That's not great. Usually you would like your number one receiver to play every game, but also have more than 236 yards and 14 catches in 6 games. But well, it is what it is. Thankfully, we talk about the Chiefs more than we talk about the Packers this year. And that brings us to Andy Reid, who spoke earlier today. His usual Monday media session, his first one since the Chiefs left Frankfurt. Let's hear what Big Red had to say earlier today, speaking to reporters.
Well, today we didn't do much. We just went out and kind of got ourselves moving around a little bit. It's an extra day, so but it was good to get back out there, and everybody had a chance to work, and so that was positive. So with that, time's yours.
Hey, Coach, welcome back. My question's on Kadarius Toney. It seemed like his usage sort of tapered off there, those last few games. Was that a maintenance game planning, and just generally, what's your outlook for Kadarius in the second half here?
Yeah, we'll just keep keep coming with him. You know, I just want to remind everybody that he did have the knee surgery, so we're taking it easy with him up to this point, and so just making sure he can make it through the year and in good health.
Hello, Coach. I have 2 questions for you. The first is just what do you feel like has impressed you most defensively when it comes to Mike Dana and George Karlaftis? And Brad, I'll have a second.
Yeah, 2 young guys and that are really playing good, solid football. And they're one thing you're going to get with them, Nate, is 110% every snap. There's no plays off with those 2, and that's and they're both smart kids, so they know the defense and what they can get away with and what they can't.
And then secondly, Andy, when you look back at how the offensive line has played over the course of the first 9 games, I guess what is the most positive sign, and what is something that maybe you've pinpointed that the 5 guys can improve upon?
Yeah, so I think we're doing a pretty good job with the run game, and for the most part with the pass game. We've got to eliminate the penalties. I mean, that's the main thing. So we take care of that. We'll be fine.
Hey, Andy, you're winning games. I know as long as you're winning games, you don't really care what those look like. But I was just wondering whether winning games in a different style has required an adjustment on your part or Pat's part or really anyone's part. And Brad, I'll have a second question as well.
Yeah, I would say you adjust every week you adjust, and you adjust every year. So there are certain things that we're still working through and learning, and that'll continue, I'm sure, throughout the year. These young guys are getting better every week, which is a plus. And we got to keep that rolling. We've had a couple of drops. We got to keep working through that and making sure that we stay strong through the ball. But other than that, we're 3rd in the National Football League in throwing, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. And I know it's only been a half season, but is there any gratification for you so far, maybe winning in a different way than what you've done in the past?
Well, we're probably between the run game and the pass game, maybe maybe more rounded, but I'm not sure about that either. Numbers are, about the same if you take percentages from what we've been doing. But I like some of the things I'm seeing. But again, there's some things we need to work on. I would tell you the penalties are probably the biggest thing right now. We just got to take care of business with that.
Hey, Andy. I realize this is a little bit far afield, but I wonder if when you guys went to the Super Bowl for the first time with the Chiefs, did you have any sense of the fact that you were largely a sentimental favorite? You personally, did you have any sense of that, or were you insulated from it? And I have a follow-up to that, Brad.
Yeah, listen, I'm insulated from it, but if that were the case, it's probably because I'm old. And hadn't won one, but or been on, been a head coach who won one.
Well, the reason I ask is sort of the flip side of that by now. Do you have any sense that even in the off season that there's a notion that, well, you've had your time, the Chiefs have gotten plenty, and people are ready to see a changing of the guard? Does that thought ever come to you through other people, or they wouldn't say that to you?
Yeah, listen, I'm in this office. I mean, you know how I do it. So, I mean, I'm in this office more than I am out of the office. So I'm not feeling a whole lot of that either way. So, I mean, I'm kind of tunneled in on trying to make sure that we play well, against the Eagles right now. So.
Thanks, Ian.
Yep.
Brad, I'll have a follow-up as well, too, if I could. Coach, I'm just curious, when you see the brotherly shove, the tush push, whatever you call it, what kind of time do you think they're spending? Obviously I know reps, it's been said, that's the most valuable thing you got in practice. You can't be an expert at everything. When you look at that as a coach, are you impressed? Do you look at it and say, my God, that must be 20, 30 minutes every practice? Is it, what's your reaction when you see how efficient they are with that?
Yeah, that's a tough one to practice, just because you almost have to do it live. So I don't think they're spending a ton of time on it. I just think they're good at it. I mean, they've their inside three do a pretty good job with it, and they've kind of made that. I think they've grown with it over time here, and that's what I see.
Okay. And then, listen, I'm sure, again, I know you just said you're isolated kind of in there in the room, but you hear the conversations that go on with Taylor Swift being a fan of your team and her relationship with Travis Kelce. People from other towns call us Kansas City fans and media. Do coaches call you? And is that a phenomenon? I know you talk with a lot of guys around there. Does that come up? And anybody asking you for, get them an autograph or some tickets or anything?
Yeah, no, nobody's really mentioned much on that. It is what it is, and I'm just glad he's found somebody he likes and she's found somebody she likes, and that's a good thing. So,
hey, Coach, in the past you've said that the bye week is, the benefit is it gives you extra time to dig in and kind of see if there's things that you're missing. And when you've said rely on Mike Frazier to tell you a lot of things. I know you're not going to tell me what you learned this week, but how do you feel about what you kind of saw about your team and implementing maybe some things that you want to do differently going forward?
Yeah, so I think, Matt, that there's plenty of things we can work on. And, it's all great what the record is and that, but, the main thing that we focus on, we don't care about that. We care about improving on all three phases. And there's room to do that. And Frazier does a great job with keeping us abreast after every game. And then you have a little bit more time to kind of work on some things and look through them, maybe at a little slower pace. But I would tell you, yes, there's things that we can get better at. I tell you that every year though, Matt, but we've got to keep cranking and working in that area, just getting better.
Hey, Andy, I just wanted to follow up on Kadarius. You talked about having him for late in the season. What's the balance there between trying to get him on the field now and having a productive player and then obviously having him for the most important games coming up?
Yeah, no, I think, listen, he played 7 plays last week. And so we can play him more than that. And still be okay. I mean, and then we just keep an eye on his leg and make sure that we're repping that out the right way and let him keep progressing as we go here throughout the year. I mean, that's the important part.
Yeah, Andy, I know Germany's kind of in the rearview mirror, but what do you hope the team takes away from that performance and going against an offense of that caliber and defense to help them propel them in the second half?
Yeah, they're a good football team. And, so you want to keep that part going. You want to win games. I mean, that's what you're trying to do. At the same time, you want to get better as you go. And so coming out of that game, we met right after we landed here. And there were things that we could work on. We were all able to look at the tape as coaches on the plane, right? So, there are things there that we've got to get better at, and but yet at the same time, continue to play with that aggressiveness and that attitude.
So that's Andy Reid speaking a little bit earlier today, his usual Monday media availability, speaking to reporters. Couple things. One, and I'm not trying to get deep into to radio wars here. Do you really think that other coaches around the league are calling Andy Reid to get autographs from Taylor Swift? Like, was that a serious question? Was that like an honest thought? Like, do you think Zach Taylor is calling up Andy Reid and saying, hey, Andy, I know we're trying not to give away too many state secrets here ahead of our game in a few weeks, but hey, my kids really love T Swift. You think you could hook me up? Like,
hey, Andy.
What?
Andy, this is Bill Belichick. just wondering if you could maybe give me a signed vinyl. Really a big fan of 19. I'm really a big fan of all the Taylor's versions.
Steve's been a big fan since 2006.
It's for my grandkids.
Like,
please.
Are you kidding me? You haven't heard from the coach in over a week, and that's what you bring to the table?
Seriously, not a productive use of everyone's time there. I understand wanting to have some fun, but you got to think out what you're really saying before it comes out of your mouth. Sometimes
some people just love to hear themselves talk, and before I get in trouble, I am going to move on with a new topic. What stood out to you the most that Reed had to say? I think there were a couple interesting nuggets in here.
It's definitely the Tony stuff.
Yeah,
like the idea that the way that they are managing Kadarius Toney is deliberate and doesn't really have, it sounds like, much to do with his relative effectiveness in the offense, and is more about how can we get more out of Kadarius Toney as we go. It was always very strange, I think, to expect as much out of Toney as they appeared to expect out of him in week 1, when he had like a day of training camp under his belt before he went and had knee surgery. And they put a lot on his plate week 1. And we don't have to rehash how harmful he was to the Chiefs' chances of winning that game in week 1. But we also remember last year. Last year's not that long ago. I mean, the highlights are still in HD. You can go watch them on YouTube if you want. There is a version of Kadarius Toney that can help the Chiefs. There's a player there that can do some things that are dynamic with the football and create some splash plays, some of those explosives that the Chiefs have missed at times this season. The trick is you want to save those bullets for when you need them. And it sounds like that is more the plan with Toney than, he's played his way out of favor, or, he's in the doghouse. I think that was a fair thing to wonder given his usage patterns, his snap counts. But no, it sounds like the Chiefs are just kind of content to lay in the cut with the Kadarius Toney packages and wait until they are needed. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some Kadarius Toney stuff coming out of the bye. I really wouldn't on Monday night.
I know Jake has some strong thoughts on this, and we'll get to it a little bit more coming up tomorrow, so I won't burn through that all the way. But I am intrigued because they talked about him so much as a number 1 wide receiver, and they made that trade, and they used him in important situations a year ago, and he had the high expectations coming into this year. And he hasn't gotten in trouble, right? Like, it's not like Kadarius Toney has done some sort of horrible thing. We haven't heard any rumors that, and we know if there is ever a rumor about someone's effort or someone's, spot in the locker room, we'll hear about it. Like, we'll hear in a notebook from Nate Taylor at The Athletic that something is going on. Or, what's his name? Albert Breer loves to leak rumors like that. Like, we'd hear something about it. So I have a hard time believing that he is straight up in the doghouse. I am curious, though, as to what the plan is and when you want to use that plan, because it's not quite like McKinnon. When McKinnon was here for his first season with the Chiefs, it was and he was a little banged up that year anyway, but it was very obvious, like, hey, get to the playoffs, use Jerick McKinnon. But at that point, Jet McKinnon was already 28, 29 years old. Like, he'd been in the league. He'd been around. Toney is still really young. He is still only in his 3rd NFL season, and he's barely played. He just hasn't played a whole lot in the NFL. So I wonder what the ramp-up period to get to that point is like. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more coming up on tomorrow's show. I know Jake's got some strong thoughts about the future usage this season of Kadarius Toney. That'll do it for the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, though. Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we've got a busy day of 580 Sports Talk headlines, including possibly some not just good, great news for who Dan likes to refer to as the professional franchise of the city of Topeka. So we'll get to that. Some Washburn athletics news to get to that just broke as well. We'll go around the college football world this weekend. Plus, we'll get to your texts and we'll get to your comments on the YouTube stream as well. We're back with more 580 Sports Talk coming up on the other side of the national and local news. now, time for the final hour of 580 Sports Talk. This first day of the week, Monday, November 13th. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That is Dan Lucero. We are here with you until 6 o'clock today, when we're sending you into coverage of Kansas State basketball. K-State 1-1 on the season. They are taking on the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State tonight. What do you know about South Dakota State hoops?
Zeke Mayo.
Yeah.
Preseason Summit League Player of the Year, former Lawrence Lions standout.
He is a baller.
Yeah, he's one of the best mid-major players in the entire country.
I'm about to do something that I hate, because I hate when people say, oh, yeah, he's going to go somewhere better. Like, now with the portal, this guy's going to go somewhere bigger. This guy's going to go somewhere better. I hate doing that. But that being said, I would not be shocked if a high major program came calling to ask about whether or not he'd like to transfer at some point, because he can go.
Yeah, really good player at Lawrence High. Always stood out. Had a chance to see him in a couple of Topeka Invitational tournaments, and knew he'd be a good college player. I don't know if I realized maybe how good.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's terrific. And South Dakota State's got a good club, preseason favorite to win the Summit League. And this will be a good test for Kansas State, who came out of their opening week of the season, I definitely think, with some things to work on after the loss to USC and then the win over Bellarmine.
No, that's a South Dakota State team that I think is going to have a chance at making the tournament. I mean, the Summit's a one-bid league, but I think that's a good enough team they could win the Summit League tournament this year. Just going through the South Dakota State roster, here's a couple fun facts for you. They have multiple Kansas kids.
Okay.
Nate Barnhart from DeSoto,
the 7-footer.
Yep.
He originally committed to Wyoming.
Yes.
But transferred to South Dakota State.
They also have a couple of players who I believe would have been teammates with Brady Christensen on the Washburn basketball roster. Went to Pius X High School in Lincoln.
Yes, Pius X. Yes.
Pius X. Well, yeah, you're right. Pius X High School in Lincoln.
Hey, I got that wrong when I covered sports out there. So I was corrected. So, yeah.
If I was referring to the Pope himself, I probably would have said Pius X.
Right.
But, yeah. They have multiple guys who went to that high school. Also, a couple of players from DeSmet, South Dakota. Do you know what is significant about DeSmet, South Dakota?
I do not.
That is where Laura Ingalls Wilder is from.
Oh, Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah. So there you go. That's all I got for you on the South Dakota State Jackrabbits.
That's one more fact than I could have given you about DeSmet, South Dakota.
I only knew that because I remember driving by on my way to the NCAA tournament, D2 tournament back in 2021, and seeing a ton of signs for birthplace of Laura Ingalls Wilder.
How about that?
A lot of that near DeSmet, South Dakota. Next up, let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headline, shall we? Don't forget, you are welcome to be a part of the show at any point. Let us know headlines, your thoughts on anything we're talking about, anything in between, either on the text line 785-272-9429 or on the YouTube feed. Our YouTube stream can be found on our channel, which is called, simply put, 580 Sports Talk, same name as the show. Getting close to 400 subscribers. We'd love for you to be number 400 if you are not already subscribed. Again, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. All right, first headline for me today. How about some great news from Gary Woodland? We know he has been going through some medical issues as of late. The Kansas Jayhawk alum, former Washburn basketball player, and of course the former U.S. Open champion. The last update we had heard on G-Dub's health was back on September 18th when his team put on Twitter that after a long surgery, the majority of the tumor that he was dealing with on his brain had been removed and he was currently resting. He had asked for privacy and space. That was until a little bit earlier on this afternoon when Gary, from his Twitter account, posted a video in slow-mo of him back at the driving range hitting a ball again. And he said, and I quote, "This journey has been very hard, but I'm extremely thankful to be progressing and for the unconditional love and support from everyone. You've all made this process a little easier for me and my family. Thank you to everyone, and I look forward to seeing you all next year." That says to me the comeback is on for Gary Woodland, and at some point in 2024, we will see him on the links again. That is just so cool and so happy. Anyone around here in town will tell you Gary is the nicest guy. He has always been very kind to us with his time coming on 580 Sports Talk. I know Jake knows him a little bit more personally and has nothing but good things to say about him. And again, everyone around town just says nothing but glowing things about Gary Woodland. And this is so cool for him, so cool for this community, this city, and can't wait to see him back out there again when he's able to play, whenever that ends up being in 2024.
Yeah, great stuff. That was definitely one of the coolest things I've seen float across social media today. G-Dub back swinging the club, and hopefully we can see him back out there. Certainly, there's some injury allowances for being able to maintain his PGA Tour card. So hopefully he can play as close to a full schedule as his health will allow, and play some more good golf in 2024. But just playing any kind of golf will be a victory in and of itself.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely.
All right. First headline for me today. Let's keep it hyper local here and tell you folks that the brackets for the Division II NCAA soccer tournament have been released, and the Washburn Ichabod women's soccer team is the number 1 seed in the Central region, and they will get to host the first 2 rounds of the tournament. Washburn soccer went 16-3-1 and won the MIAA regular season championship. The selection show is on in 18 minutes, being streamed live at ncaa.com, 5:30. The start of the selection show. So we'll have to wait a little longer to see who they will play, but we know that first round action in the Central region will take place in Topeka Friday, November 17th. The second round contest will be 1 p.m. Sunday.
How cool is that for that program? What a season.
Yes, and lots of local presence on that team. Lots of girls from Kansas, lots of girls from Topeka, lots of girls from Washburn Rural's outstanding program. So really neat to see the success that they've had.
Yeah, and you've gotten to hear plenty over the course of at least the last few weeks on the Washburn Coaches Show. And usually, of course, feature mostly the football team and the men's and women's basketball team. But when other programs at Washburn are thriving, like Davy Phillips and the Washburn women's soccer team, we've heard a lot from Coach Phillips on that program throughout the year with Jake. Just so cool. And yeah, I mean, if you haven't been paying attention to what's been up with Washburn soccer, and you see tons and tons of Kansas names on there, McKinley Roan has been phenomenal all season for the program. She's a Topeka product. Obviously, she went to Washburn Rural. Same can be said for a number of other players on that program, along with other schools in the city. So just so cool to see all of that success that program has been having over the course of the year. Let's get next to our next headline, and that includes a lot of open jobs in the college football coaching world, including a couple that came open just today. In total, 4 open jobs after the weekend. And how about this? 2 head coaching jobs open that played off against each other this weekend. Texas A&M and Mississippi State played one another this weekend, and now both head coaches out of a job. Let's start right there. The biggest one, the biggest fish from the weekend, Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. I don't know if you know this, but the price of oil going up. Looking good for those businessmen with the big 10-gallon hats down in Texas. And in an unrelated note, of course, Jimbo Fisher has finally been bought out. He is going to be replaced as the new head coach at Texas A&M. Ross Bjork, who has been in college sports for a long time. That's probably as overwhelmingly positive as I can be about Ross Bjork and his job as a college football and college sports administrator. He had a handful of quotes this weekend about why they are firing Jimbo Fisher, why they want to move in a different direction and competing for national championships and things like that. Look, A&M spent a lot of money on their various budgets, on recruiting. They have had a lot of partners in the NIL space. I mean, they've handed out more NIL money than anybody.
We talk about want to a lot when it comes to winning college sports programs. There is a lot of want to at Texas A&M.
Yes, but the big thing that comes with want to can get you a lot of places. They can get you from the Big 12 to the SEC. It can get you to the NIL marketplace. It can get you a lot of things. But to be Georgia, Alabama, LSU, I would put in the same category too. To be in that tier of programs, you also need to execute. You need the want to and the got it done. A&M doesn't have that back half. Bama's done it. LSU's done it. Georgia's done it. Texas A&M has not.
So since 2019, which was Fisher's first full recruiting class as the head coach after he left from Florida State, Texas A&M signed 70 players in that span who were ranked as ESPN 300 players. So top 300 players in the country in their respective recruiting classes. Texas A&M signed 70 of those players in the last 4-5 recruiting classes.
That's a lot.
The only schools who signed more, in fact, Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. So again, 1-2 gets players in the door.
Mm-hmm.
That has not been the problem for Jimbo Fisher. The recruiting classes have been there. The level of talent you would expect to need to bring in to win at the level that Texas A&M clearly expected to win when they gave Jimbo Fisher first 10 years, $75 million to come over from Florida State, and then gave him that bonkers extension after they went 9-0 in the everything is fake COVID season of 2020. The talent's there. That's not the problem.
Nope.
You've seen Devin A-Chain play, right? In the NFL? Yeah. The Texas A&M, like talent level, not really the issue.
They put dudes in the NFL every year.
It is going to cost Texas A&M more than $76 million to buy out his contract. Fisher is owed $19.2 million within 60 days and then $7.2 annually through 2031. When I tell you that if somebody were going to pay me $76 million not to coach football, I would do so much not coaching football, you wouldn't believe it. You would never see me again if I were Jimbo Fisher. I'd move to Greece and I would spend the rest of my days chilling. There is nothing that could bring me back to the sidelines if you're going to pay me $76 million not to coach. By the way, that buyout's just for him. Never mind the assistants, who most of them got extensions this year.
And not to mention that you then have to pay for another coach and coaching staff.
Yep.
This should be, and it won't be, nothing is going to change, but this should be an indication to athletic departments. You don't have to pay for this. You don't. Like, there's only a certain subset of people who can survive at a Texas A&M because you've got to win, you've got to recruit, and you've got to deal with egomaniacal boosters. You have to deal with all of that. There are only certain people who can work at certain schools. Most of the SEC is like that. Like, there is a very small number, for example, of guys who will one day be able to replace Nick Saban. Or, 20 years from now, be able to replace Kirby Smart because he is still so young and has had so much success. So there's only a certain set of people who can fill in at those jobs. And the same goes for Texas A&M. Same with Texas and Ohio State and other places, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this should be a warning and a clear example of why you don't need to pay for guys like this. Jimbo Fisher, big name, obviously. You can win without paying $76 million in a buyout one day. You can do it.
His initial contract was fully guaranteed. They guaranteed him 10 years and $75 million, and then they gave him the extension to bump his salary from $7.5 million to like $9.1 million.
You can win without doing that, guys. You can. Programs all over the country are.
Here's the other thing, too. Again, this is Texas A&M. This is College Station, Texas, we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally, not the easiest place to attract talent. Now, want to goes a long way. Want to goes a very long way. Do you know how many times since leaving the Southwest Conference after the 1995 season, Texas A&M has won double-digit games?
Is it more than twice?
It is not more than twice.
Is it less than twice?
Exactly twice.
Yeah, twice.
1998, they went 11-3.
Yep.
Shout out R.C. Slocum. They finished 11th in the final AP poll.
K-State fans, plug your ears.
That concluded a stretch. Let me do a little back of the napkin math here. 13 out of 15 years, they were ranked in the postseason top 25. 4 of those years, they were ranked in the postseason top 10 in the AP poll. 1 of those under Jackie Sherrill, 3 of those under R.C. Slocum.
Mm-hmm.
A pretty good thing going, late 80s through the 90s,
yeah.
The dying embers of the Southwest Conference. keep in mind, the mid-90s was also when Texas took a big step back.
Yep.
And Oklahoma took a big step back.
Yep.
And there was a bit of a power vacuum, and Texas A&M was able to fill that, and
Mhm.
so on and so forth. Anyhow, they won 11 games in 1998. They won 11 games in 2012. That was first year of Kevin Sumlin. That was a swag copter.
Swag copter.
That was, I believe, yes, Johnny Football.
That was Johnny Football. That's Mike Evans.
Finished 5th in the postseason AP poll. That's it. Those are your double-digit win seasons at Texas A&M since leaving the Southwest Conference. They had 4 in a row in a stretch, including an unbeaten 10-0-1 in 1994. Why don't you remember that 1994 Texas A&M team? Probation, because everybody in the Southwest Conference was on probation because everybody was cheating. But like the expectations, on the one hand, you got to temper them a little bit because this is not. You're not Alabama.
No.
You're not going to be Alabama.
You will not be.
You're not going to be Georgia, and you're not going to be Ohio State. You're not. But if you recruit at a high level, you ought to be able to compete. You could be LSU, I think. I think that's possible.
Sure.
You can win at the level that Auburn has won at, where they have a national championship in recent memory.
Played for another.
Like, that could be you. But, adjust your expectations accordingly. It's a fascinating job. It really is.
Yeah.
Because the want to and the actual capability, there's no greater gulf, I don't think, in college football between those two things at a given school than at Texas A&M.
The other head coaching job that is open from that game, Zach Arnett at Mississippi State. He was put in an impossible situation. He was the defensive coordinator for Mississippi State last year, but took over the program full time without the interim tag when Mike Leach died. It is hard to follow a legend. It is hard to follow a coach who just died, especially in a situation like that. He was put in a situation that was almost impossible to succeed in, but they had to keep him. They had to keep someone from that staff because otherwise they're going to lose their 25-man recruiting class. It is what it is. So they promoted him to full-time head coach, and his first decision was to go away from the air raid. You cannot survive going from air raid to something else in one offseason. You can't. That is such a specific offense, the pure air raid. It does not work. And that probably spelled Arnett's doom more than anything, but they stink. The vibes are really bad. They're not going to recruit well this season. And from what I could tell, Mississippi State fans don't hold ill will against Arnett, but it just clearly wasn't working, and you're moving on, and sometimes it is what it is. I am fascinated by that job because now with no divisions, that changes things a little bit. In some degrees, it makes it a little bit easier because you don't necessarily have to always be behind A&M and LSU and Alabama and Auburn every year. But by the same token, now you're in the same pool as also Georgia and Tennessee and Florida, which does not make it. And shoot, Kentucky's been better than you for the last 5 years. Not all necessarily a great place to be. I know he doesn't recruit, but if I was Mississippi State, I would go ask Dan Mullen how badly he wants to get back in the game.
Yeah, because he made it shake there in a way that not a lot of people have.
And if you can get 8, is a Mississippi State fan going to be complaining about 8 wins going forward?
Never.
No. I'd make him say no, honestly, if he's willing to do it.
That would be the interesting phone call. Let me ask you about the interesting Texas A&M phone call. Do you think they call Coach Prime?
Okay, who mentioned that today? Was that Stephen A?
That college football expert Stephen A. Smith.
Someone would die. I'm not saying it's Coach Prime. It might be a booster. It might be like booster on booster crime at that point. That would lead to bloodshed. Oh my God, no. And also, but like you just said, the problem's not talent.
No.
Deion's big thing is motivation and accumulating talent.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the problem.
No, it's not. It's scheme. It's game day stuff. It's winning football games. Jimbo Fisher wasn't good enough at that. There's not a lot of evidence. In fact, the evidence is rapidly shrinking that Deion Sanders is going to be all that good at that at the Division I level. So
stop asking people who don't watch college football to discuss college football. Stop. Let First Take just be an NBA and occasional NFL show. Leave it at that.
If you go to ESPN.com anymore and you just scroll down the front page, like every third thing is like a score, and then it's Stephen A. Smith says this about that. Like, okay, it's an NBA score. Stephen A. Smith says Luka Doncic is an MVP candidate. Yeah, okay, I can buy that. Liverpool 3, Brentford 0. Stephen A. Smith says Mohamed Salah might be the GOAT. Like, I don't want that opinion.
You're now. I do want to give ESPN a little bit more credit. They have also mixed in now Pat McAfee.
Oh yes, yeah, we get a lot of that too. Like Stars 6, Oilers 2. Pat McAfee thinks Connor McDavid is an overrated bum. Watch this video. Like I come to those people, if I come to them at all, for very specific things.
It is not that.
It's not that. No.
All right. So the other jobs that are open, Brady Hoke today announced that he is retiring from San Diego State. Maybe SDSU will start running an offense that came into vogue after 1973. That'd be good for them.
Classic story, Brady Hoke of water finding its level. Like a good coach at Ball State, way overmatched at the big time at Michigan. Came to San Diego State, came back to San Diego State because he was at Ball State, then he was at San Diego State, won 9 games at San Diego State. That was somehow good enough for Michigan to hire him. One of the worst hires really in college football history. Then after a long run of success where they went to a bowl every year under Rocky Long, they brought Brady Hoke back after Long retired, and Hoke took him to 12 wins 2 years ago. But they moved into a new stadium last year. They can't fill the place. Like, it's not that they're bad, which they are. They're 3-7, but like they're brutal to watch.
Oh, they're miserable football to watch. It's ugly.
So they got to modernize that program. That's the big thing at San Diego State.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's a phone call. We'll give you a phone call for each one of these. Give me Sean Lewis, the guy who just got demoted by Coach Prime because your guess is as good as mine. Like, go call that guy. You want a modern offense? Go call that guy.
I was going to say Andy Kotelnicki, but I don't want to put that out there.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. No, you can't have him. Sorry, San Diego State. You can't have him. Last one, Andy Avalos fired at Boise State. That's an alum. That's always tough. A lot of people thought that was a good hire. I thought that was a pretty good hire. He stinks. He stinks as a coach.
They're 5-5, which means Avalos has presided over 2 5-loss seasons, excluding the first 3 years of their transition from Division II to Division 1A. Do you know how many 5-loss seasons that program has in its history?
What, like 2, 3?
3 now. 1 before Avalos, and that was 2013 when they went 8-5 in Chris Peterson's final year. They lost the bowl game under an interim coach.
I mean, from everything I can tell, I mean, I don't follow Boise State to the hilt or anything, but from what I can tell, it's very much he lost the locker room and it's going to get worse before it gets better kind of situation.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they did go 10-4 last year. They've got a great home field advantage because nobody can see their blue jerseys on the blue turf. But no, it should be better than that. They have higher expectations than that. Here's Boise State's phone call. And it's a really easy one. You know, he's not working. Brian Harsin.
See, I do imagine they would at least talk. From what I've read, Boise State wasn't exactly sad he got the Auburn job. Not quite a Satterfield situation because Harsin did win at Boise, but Harsin also like hates everyone. He's like a misandrist. Like he just kind of hates people. I don't know if that's the way you go. The one call you have to make, you will get turned down, but you have to make it, is your most famous football alumnus. You call Kellen Moore. He'll turn you down because he's going to be an NFL head coach at some point, but I feel like you have to call. You know who else, though, is a great offensive coordinator in college right now who also went to Boise State? Kirby Moore, his brother. He's the offensive coordinator at Missouri.
That is an interesting thought.
Yeah.
By the way, I believe the word you were looking for was misanthrope.
Misanthrope.
Misandrist means you just hate men.
Yeah, okay.
Misanthrope means you hate humans.
Yes, you are correct. Misanthrope. I mean,
the more you know. Learning some vocabulary, some
maybe he's like
10-cent words with Brendan and Dan.
Maybe Brian Harsin's like a mega feminist, and I just don't know about it. I don't know. But that is your update from the college coaching carousel.
One final headline for me today. Another, speaking of coaching carousels, another managerial hire in Major League Baseball. Houston Astros have selected their bench coach, Joe Espada, to replace Dusty Baker as their manager. Baker stepping aside by a mutual decision, let's say, after the conclusion of the Astros playoff run. Just general agreement on both sides. It was time for Dusty to step aside. Espada, longtime bench coach, really well respected in that locker room, will step in. Also, the Cubs made it official today that they have hired Craig Counsell as their new manager.
Yeah, I feel like Espada was kind of an obvious choice here. Like, not really a surprise this ended up being the move. I know he's very well respected around baseball. So, makes sense.
Yeah, the Astros are in the middle of deciding like what kind of organization they want to be, because once upon a time they gave themselves over completely to like the McKinsey analytics. Every decision we make is statistically based, and we're looking for the bleeding edge everywhere we can find it. And that led them to championships. It also led them to a cheating scandal. So they're trying to find a little bit more of a balance. And Dusty Baker was too far in the wrong direction, because he's a classic old school, go with your gut kind of guy. So they're looking for somebody who's going to like listen to the numbers, but maybe not start banging on trash cans. So Joe Espada might be that guy.
Maybe. That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. Come on back on the other side of this break. We'll go around the college football world, some of the other headlines from the weekend, including a lot of exciting games. That's coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. You know what is really great for building a brand if you're a professional sports league? Announcing major awards when most companies are doing news dumps. That's a really good time to do it. Like after the news cycle ends for the day. The reason this comes up is we just found out the American League Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, they do them at night during the week. So
they announced the freaking Platinum Glove winners at like 9 o'clock the other day.
Yeah.
Why? No one's talking about this.
I don't understand it.
It is maddening.
I don't understand it. Yeah, Gunnar Henderson, unanimous choice as the American League Rookie of the Year. That means they'll announce National League Rookie of the Year here in just a little bit.
Heck of a player.
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson's really good. That Baltimore team will be good for as long as the Angelos family decides to keep all of those guys around, which is probably just until they get expensive.
All right, let's get to our look back on the college football weekend that was. We got a handful of headlines to get to here. Let's start this way. Biggest headline for you, game-wise, news-wise, what stood out the most from this weekend?
Well, it has to be Michigan-Penn State, right?
Yeah.
That's the game. That's the story that has kind of consumed college football. That here you have one of the, at minimum, 3 best teams in the country. And I would argue one of the 2 best, since Georgia appears to have their Death Star fully operational. I am now no longer willing to put Michigan above Georgia. There were a few weeks I was willing to do that. And Michigan just did get their best win of the year because the best team they played. 29-15 over Penn State. Game wasn't that close, frankly.
No.
It was not as close as the final score suggested. But they are embroiled in this scandal, and depending on how you look at it, it's either the gravest, most serious cheating scandal in the history of college football, and it's the worst thing to ever happen to the Big Ten Conference. If you think this, you probably have like Bucknut in your Twitter handle, or Go Green, Go White is your password for stuff. But I think most people aren't taking this quite so seriously and see it either A, as jokes, or B, as a low-level staffer doing something that really didn't confer Michigan that big of an advantage, which is kind of where I fall at the end of this, that this one dude took his responsibilities beyond the gray area and did something he wasn't supposed to do, but was doing it all by himself. And in the end, did not give. I mean, there have been people not even on the record. They won't go on the record and say this because they know it's ridiculous. But people saying that what Michigan was doing, filming signals from the bleachers with an iPhone, was the equivalent of playing with 15 players on defense, or a 21-point advantage, or just like the worst thing you could ever do. And my question to people who think that is, do you have a favorite flavor of blue? You must, because you've got to be moronic to think that there was a significant advantage as opposed to what apparently other schools were getting, which is just calling their friends on other coaching staffs and getting Michigan signals that way. Or people that say it's a player safety issue.
That's such a farce.
Like, if it's a player safety issue, then why do we play football? Like, why play football at all? Anyway, so put yourself in the shoes of the Michigan Wolverines in this extremely likely scenario. All you're doing is playing ball, right? And you have no idea that little wiener with the goatee, vacuum salesman Connor Stallions, is actually being pretty flagrant with some rule breaking outside of the purview of your head coach and your coaching staff. Again, I would say that's a likely possible outcome. And so now all of a sudden you're the bad guy. You're the biggest villain in the sport. Your coach, who you love. And look, I am totally with anybody who is not a Jim Harbaugh fan. I get it. I'm not a great big fan of Jim Harbaugh either. I think he's a deeply weird dude. I get why he inspires like outright hatred from his rivals and distaste from others. But I also get why he inspires such loyalty and love from his players. And they love that guy. And it's obvious. And while you're on an airplane, the Big Ten decides that they're going to suspend him and they're going to keep him off your sideline. Like, imagine the emotions that you went through if you are Michigan, that you've been going through in the last 2-3 weeks, that you went through in the 24 hours leading up to the biggest game of your season. If I were Sharon Moore, I probably would have cried too. I definitely would have cussed on television.
I will say this about this game. I am far more convinced that Michigan is the best team in the country after this game than I was beforehand. I thought they were beforehand. Right now, you put them against Georgia, they win by 10 points. They didn't throw they threw one pass and it didn't count in the second half. It was called off for a penalty.
Yes, so no play. So you throw out 32 consecutive running plays against the number one defense in the country.
And a top 10 team in pretty much every single ranking. Now, Michigan's the best team in the country. I am more they could have won that game by more. They absolutely could have won that game by more because they've got a quarterback who's going to potentially be in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. He could have thrown the ball. They've got receivers. They got a quarterback who can play. They have a play caller in Sharon Moore who he could have called pass plays. Absolutely could have. They just messed with them.
Yeah.
They just wanted to mess around.
They did.
That's what they did to a top 10 team. They punked them.
They knew that Penn State was going to send their star pass rushers because they have bookend pass rushers.
Uh-huh.
They have the best two pair of defensive ends in the country. Chop Robinson and the other guy whose name is escaping me, but he's really good too. Chop's the main man.
Yeah,
and
the other guy's not named Chop. That's all I need.
The first two drives of the game for Michigan, he was beating Carson Barnhart, the right tackle for Michigan, so badly that I briefly considered calling the police and ordering a welfare check. Like, it was really bad for Carson Barnhart. Yeah. And it looked like, oh boy, what is Michigan going to do? What's Michigan going to do? They're going to invite him upfield, and then they're going to run where he used to be.
Yep.
That's what they did all game. They invited Penn State to come charging upfield and just went where they weren't anymore. And that's how they put together their scoring drives in the first half. That's how they put together the game-sealing touchdown run from Blake Corum. That's how they moved to 10-0 with a layup game against Maryland. All that sits between them and the annual football Armageddon against Ohio State. That one's in Ann Arbor, by the way.
Michigan's winning that game.
Yes.
I haven't checked the look-ahead line. Michigan's winning that game.
Yes, they are.
They might not win the national championship, but they are the best team in the country. I am very confident in saying that. Alabama continues to roll. I know a lot of people were picking Kentucky. I don't know why. Like, I was on this train for a while that Kentucky is tough and they play intriguing offensive football, and they've got some nice defensive pieces, and Mark Stoops is a good coach. And Kentucky keeps getting picked to cover the spread in big games, and they just never do it. Like, they're beating up on the bad teams in the SEC. They'll mess around a little bit with some of the good teams, and then they end up just getting walloped in the end. Tons of people were betting on Kentucky against Alabama this weekend. They lost by 28 points. Like, not in the same class. They're just not.
Milroe's awesome. I mean, like, I think he's at the point where we can call him, like, I don't think
he's a different player. Like, that's a body switch.
Yes. He's not going to win the Heisman this year, but if you could bet on him to win it next year right now, I would make that bet.
Yeah, he has been incredible as of late. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception in his last 3 games or something like that. He's been great. Georgia whooped Ole Miss. You knew that was going to end up happening. No, I mean, there were a lot of really intriguing matchups. Oregon, I was bellowing on the show on Friday about how confident I was in them. They saw what Bo Nix did on his first 2 passes of the game and said, all right, that's not worth our time.
We're going to throw this into second gear and just kind of coast.
Yeah, they ended up not covering. They could have beaten USC by 25 if they wanted. I know that's not how gambling works, but Oregon dominated that game.
The fascinating thing about this stage of college football is we have 5 unbeatens from the 4 power conferences right now. Plus, Alabama and Texas teams that at one point or another have been able to stake their claim as one of the country's best teams, and an Oregon team that fits. Like, right now, there are 8 teams that not only would hang in the playoff, but have a resume that probably deserves to be in the playoff. We're not in the 12-team playoff yet. We still got one more year of the 4 teams. How's it going to shake out? Is Florida State going to lose? I don't think so. Is Washington going to lose? Maybe. Is Georgia going to lose? Alabama might get them. Michigan or Ohio State, one of those 2 teams is going to lose, and that might be it. Like, we entered the season thinking both of those teams could make the playoff. I think the loser's out.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. This is the best year of the playoff in terms of what Michael Weintraub, who wrote a great book called Season of Saturdays.
Yes, he did. That's an awesome book.
Yeah, it tangles a lot of historical anecdotes and the reason why college football today looks like it does, and some other interesting stories from the more modern game. And the whole book is about what he calls the argument, and about how the AP poll was created for the sake of the argument, and coaches polls and fans, and nowadays, into the playoff era, it's about the argument. And this year in the college football playoff is the best it's ever been since its nascent year, as in regard to the argument about who deserves it, who's not going to deserve it, things like that. It's been a great year at the top for college football. It really has.
Yeah, the best teams aren't losing. That's the wild thing. Like, usually a team like a Florida State or an Ohio State, like, they would stub their toe, right? Like, that's not happening. The toe stubbing is not happening for these great teams.
That's happening in the second tier a lot. Like, the teams just below these, like Oklahoma this year is not in that elite category like they've been in some years past. They've stubbed their toe. I mean, down to Oklahoma State lost by 1 million this weekend. They're in that next group of teams this year.
It's like nothing between the South Alabama game and the UCF game happened at all.
Yeah.
For Oklahoma State.
It's amazing. Honestly incredible.
Like, yeah, if you had gone into a coma after the South Alabama loss, and you woke up and the next Oklahoma State game you saw was that on Saturday, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Would you believe they won Bedlam? No. There are a lot of other things you wouldn't believe either.
By the way, one final real quick thought from college football, and we didn't bring this up when we were talking Texas A&M last segment. There's also a very obvious sitting Power 5 head coach. I mean, I'm sure many Power 5 sitting head coaches will be brought up as names for Texas A&M. Why not a recent defensive coordinator of theirs who has turned around a historically miserable program and turned them into, if nothing else, a tough out? I mean, the injuries have totally messed up Duke's season, specifically to Riley Leonard. But Mike Elko has done an unbelievable job with the Blue Devils.
Yeah, that kind of feels like a no-brainer, doesn't it? Like all of the articles, like here are the 10 names that are most likely to be the next Texas A&M head coach. And a lot of it, like you see Coach Prime, you see like Dan Campbell, like he's going to leave the NFL to go to Texas A&M. They ain't got that much money. I mean, that oil money's sweet, but I don't think they got enough money to tell Dan Campbell, hey, leave this NFL job where you are revered and you're winning in a place where nobody wins and go recruit again. No, stop it. Yeah.
And go work for people who are worse to work for than Sheila Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about money, by the way, just real quick, if you were worried about that. The Lions are still owned by the same family that owns the Ford Motor Corporation.
Right.
I think Dan Campbell will be fine with that. Yeah, I would imagine Mike Elko, he should be first on that list. He's a stellar head coach.
Yeah, first call, and I do whatever I could to make it the last call, too.
Let's get to a quick timeout. On the other side of this break, we'll talk a little K-State basketball. What do the Cats have to show in terms of improvement as we begin the second week of the season? That's up next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk, 550 on this Monday afternoon. When we're done here on 580 Sports Talk today, we'll send you to the K-State Sports Network as the Wildcats are in action against the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State coming up tonight. You mentioned it when we chatted about this briefly at the top of the hour. The K-State showed a couple of things in the first week of the season. You lose to a good USC team. There's no shame in that, certainly, to open the season. Then that game against Bellarmine on Friday, not the sharpest performance we've ever seen from K-State basketball. What is kind of the top of the list thing that you think K-State, I'm not saying they need to improve for this game in particular. It's November basketball, a long way to go. Every team is far from a finished product, at least they should be. But what's kind of at the top of the wish list for All right, the next thing for this K-State team to improve on is X or Y or Z. What is at the top of that list?
I think just a little bit more crispness on offense, taking better care of the basketball. They were certainly much better against Bellarmine, but Bellarmine's not the defensive team that USC is. I want to see better from Tyler Perry and Arthur Kaluma. I don't think we've seen their best basketball, and that's understandable. It's still a new team. Keontae Johnson didn't play like an All-American in his first 2 games as a Kansas State Wildcat last year. So they get a grace period here against opponents like this. But I do think that I want to see those two play a little smarter. Perry, I think, got to do better getting his teammates involved. Kaluma, I think, as well, can do a better job to get his teammates involved, play make a little bit better, better shot selection from him. Jerome Tang was pretty critical of Kaluma after the Bellarmine game.
That's what stood out to me, and that's what made me ask. I wonder if right now part of the issue is still just team chemistry, and it's still getting all of these pieces to mesh properly with one another.
I think it is. And then defensively, they gave up too many easy baskets to Bellarmine. I thought they gave up way too much stuff at the rim, and they're not going to be a great rim protecting team, I don't think. I think Colbert can be a good rim protector when he's out there, but I think Tomlin can be too, but obviously he's not out there. So just a little bit better defense at the rim. Make South Dakota State have to work for the shots that they get close to the basket. I don't think they really did that against Bellarmine, especially in the second half. I mean, they were at 15 at halftime. In the second half, they kind of got a little loose with it, but it never felt like Bellarmine was going to make it a game. So that's one thing. South Dakota State's better than Bellarmine, and they can push Kansas State if Kansas State is on their P's and Q's tonight. Another thing I'm curious to see, though, is the continued development of the freshmen, because Day-Day Ames in particular play with a lot of confidence against Bellarmine. Confidence in his shot, confidence in driving the ball. Really liked seeing that out of the freshman, and it's pretty exciting that he has the potential. I think could be a really, really good lead guard in the Big 12 based on what I've seen early.
Yeah, that class looks like it's got a lot of potential. I really like these young guys for Kansas State, but I think that's also part of the chemistry issue that I was alluding to, is that these are new players to college basketball. There is almost always a learning curve unless you are an all-time freak kind of prospect, and I don't think that's what K-State has, and that's not an insult. There just aren't very many of those that have come around. God didn't make a whole lot of those.
Right.
So it's hard to plan for that. But no, this team is going to be way better on January 13th than it is on November 13th.
Yes.
And I think for a coach like Jerome Tang, who is a self-admitted defensive-minded head coach, they're going to get that stuff figured out. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take to get there. And Jerome Tang mentioned buy-in after that game on Friday, which I think set off a lot of alarm bells regarding specifically Arthur Kaluma. How quickly are these guys going to buy into what this coaching staff is selling? And against the team that I think, again, is going to mess around and have a chance to make the NCAA tournament, great opportunity to show a little bit of that tonight. That's coming up. Pregame begins as soon as we're done here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got to get to a quick break. We'll wrap up the show with the final word coming up after this. Time for a real quick final word, Dan.
Congratulations to Will Howard, all-time passing touchdown leader at Kansas State. Class act, great kid, great representative of the university, and it's been fun to watch his evolution. And also congratulations once again to my DePaul Fighting Tigers. Way to bring home that bell.
I'm also talking about a Sunflower State quarterback, Jason Bean. I know you can't really control it at this point, but man, I hope you are healthy and ready to go. It's no disrespect to Cole Ballard, and I know he's going to go 110% if he gets the start in the Sunflower Showdown on Saturday, but I think we all realistically know KU's chances of winning that game far, far better if it's Jason Bean out there at quarterback instead of the walk-on Cole Ballard. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. Don't forget K-State basketball against South Dakota State coverage coming up right after we are done at the top of the hour. We're back tomorrow with a full show from 2 until 6, including Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain. All that and more tomorrow at 2. For Jake LeBon, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. This has been 580 Sports Talk.